Long time no see. Welcome to another Dead by Daylight creation review. Except this time I'm just gonna go back through and I'm gonna clean up all the crap that I skipped over. And that's going to be a thing. So we're going to go through, pick up all of these small ones, the old ones, things like that. I'm gonna give small reviews because I still don't want to go over them. I'll give them a little bit of time unless, you know, a lot of time and effort's been put into them. And I'm going to catch back up to present. We'll go back. I'll start on the first page and go to the second page if I have time. The monk. Okay, dang. Where do we want to start at? New chapter idea with the question mark, absolute zero. I guarantee it's nothing about a goddamn chapter. It's probably some bullshit that you just wrote out a couple of sentences and then you're like, oh, idea. Yeah. Look at my idea. Yeah. Yeah. Now, fill in all the work for me. It's why I don't generally pay attention to a lot of the things that are posted. Sometimes they just give off an aura that, hey, I want somebody else to do the work for me. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this isn't just, you know, a small thing that doesn't have a lot of effort put into it, asking for people to do things for it. I don't know. Let's find out, though. I am logged in, right? I hope I am. I created this account not only to share my ideas, but to get a better idea of the people involved in Dead by Daylight. Well, actually, no. At least you took an initiative. I don't know about coming to the creation forum to get a better idea on behavior, but there are lots of other forums and things like that besides the creation forum that he could be going to. Maybe he just stopped here to drop an idea down. I don't know. Anyway, below is the chapter idea I have. I would love to answer all of your questions to the best of my ability. My art isn't the best, but I will try to hopefully draw out my idea of both characters. Chapter Absolute Zero. Map Decayed Backwoods from Orman. Decayed Backwoods is the second map in the Orman realm, introduced by the chapter Absolute Zero. Wasteland, withered trees. The Shred. I assume the Shred is the name of the killer. Name Arthur Palmer, male, Canadian for whatever reason. Realm Ormond. Okay. Power Bitter Remains, power attack type, basic attack, weapon, withered ice pick, movement 115 or 4.6 meters per second, tear radius 26 meters. Lullaby radius 45 meters. Height tall. Again, I don't understand these random ass numbers that people pick. If your regular movement speed is 4.6, just make the tear radius 32 meters. Then the lullaby can be 45 meters or whatever. If not, decrease your movement speed to 4.4. Then you can make your tear radius the same as the Huntresses and any other, the hag range characters and things like that. You make that around 28 meters per second or 24 meters per second or, anywhere around there. 28, 24. You can use a little bit of variance because you have the lullaby. And make that 45 meters per second if you want to. But there's no point in making this tear radius 26 and this tear radius 45. You might as well just make this one 32 because they're going to hear your lullaby radius at 45 anyway. So what's the point of decreasing that? This isn't a range killer. This isn't any type of special killer or anything like that. At least by the movement speed, it shows that it's not a range killer or anything crazy. So it just makes you wonder what the actual hell. Give me a moment. Much better. Hello, Galanonim. So movement speed needs to be decided between 4.4 and 4.6. Tear radius needs to be, either 32 for the regular movement speed or combined with the lullaby. You can get anywhere from 24 to 28 and it'd be about fine. But again, having the lullaby at 45 meters, I don't understand why you would decrease the tear radius to 26 when you have a 45-meter lullaby. The shred is a suspending killer. I don't know what suspending killer means, but sure. Ordering his dire wolves to drag survivors to nearby hooks, meanwhile weakening his prey. So, you're changing a core aspect of the game right there. You are getting rid of the particular killer's ability to hook particular survivors. The only other killer that has something close to that would be Pyramid Head. He has the ability to teleport them across map into a Cage of Atonement. And there's limitations on what he can do with that particular cage. So, having any type of thing to where you have an AI carrying survivors to hooks are going to present a lot of problems. You've seen the AI in Dead by Daylight. Even though it's improved, it's still pretty bad. It means they never took the AI from any other game or any other source. They built it basically from scratch. So, they're going to have to advance their AI enough to know how to get to a hook and not run into any objects or anything like that in front of it. So they're going to have to introduce a pathfinding system. The AI knows exactly what's going on at each individual time. It's going to have to know when other survivors are in front of it, and it's going to have a way to move the other survivors, and a whole bunch of other things. You're also going to have to implement the system to where the survivor can be saved which perks, interact with that particular experience, etc., etc. So, unless you go into hardcore detail about how all of this works, I definitely stay leaving it to the killer to transport them. Now, if you want something similar to that, you could have, I don't know, it's a wolf, like a giant wolf with like a cage hanging off of it or some shit. And you can try and teleport survivors into that, maybe. And just have that survivor, being walked around actively by like a wolf or something. I mean, it's gonna be extremely hard to code then, but at least the survivor will still be just on a hook. Basic hook animation of them, zoop, and then bam, being on the hook. And then they would just have to include a move animation, which would be a lot easier than doing it vice versa, moving something to the hook. Or make it to where that's just a moving hook, and once a survivor gets on that particular hook, the hook just stays still, and make it super easy. So it's a moving hook that you can choose where you want to hook that, when it stops, where you want to put it on, or something like that. I don't know. It'd be something unique like what you're looking for, but it'd be something more simple than that. As always, I'm just spitballing, saying things at the top of my head, but definitely you're gonna have problems with having wolves dragging survivors to nearby hooks. Plus, you're gonna be making that way too easy. Imagine in game if you have no ad and you just pop, drag that guy to a hook, pop, drag that guy to a hook, pop, drag that guy to a hook. It becomes way too easy when you can just keep pressuring survivor after survivor after survivor. Again, even if Pyramid Head uses his Cage of Atonements, there are limitations to what he can actually do with the Cage of Atonement. Shreds perks. You're a perk then, yeah, you're a perk then power guy. That's kind of annoying, but it is what it is. Again, perk should be listed after the power and after everything that the killer can do. Because what you want to do is you want to see everything that the killer can do first, then you want to compare the perks to that actual killer to see if the perks are actually designed for that killer, whether they make sense for that killer. Because you come across way too often to where you have a very bad killer that has or that's been created, but somebody has a whole bunch of different perks that are good for, let's say, their main character. Like, they're a Legion main, but they made this fake ass killer on the side, but all the perks were good for Legion, but not the actual killer. You'll get that a lot, is most people tend to think what their main, being a killer, or their main being a survivor, is missing, and then they try to design around it. You can get away with it somewhat as a survivor, but killer wise, no, you really can't. There's no leeway. Each killer is their own being. This is why I always say I want perks first, because it goes together sequential. Because now I'm going to have to go over these, go over this, and then scroll back up and go over these. But we'll start here. Frigid sorrow, your pain and guilt taints those around you. Gain a token when bringing a survivor into the dying state. That needs to be rewrote because all these perks go to different killers. And there are different ways to get into the dying state besides being, the actual killer. It needs to be wrote as, a basic attack being the thing to bring you to a dying state, or a hit being in a dying state, or any reason, any time, any place, anywhere. the survivor goes into a dying state. That needs to be clarified because the other killers will get a hold of this perk as well. And just saying when bringing a survivor to the dying state doesn't give you enough detail. Up to a maximum of 5 tokens. Each token incurs a stackable 5% penalty to healing and recovery speeds up to the maximum of 25%. This is a terrible perk. I mean, good for killers. Yeah. But you realize Expentimento exists. That is a 20% decrease in repair speed, and then it goes to like a 25% or 20% something in healing speed. And that's with 2 rekindled tokens on the field. The whole point of Expentimento is it's an ongoing battle. If they break a totem, you can rekindle it back into a hex totem. This is just a penalty that the survivors are going to have throughout the entire game. Even Thatanophobia, which used to be this, except it was just as soon as the first survivor got injured, it was active. They changed it and made it to each individual injured survivor added that negative up. This perk is way too strong. They've literally nerfed perks that had this particular set that slows you down. So there's no way for you to lose these tokens, so there's no point of even, having a token system here. Yeah, you have a way to gain them, but there's no way to actually spend them or lose them. And all it is from putting a survivor into a dying state. You can literally farm a survivor and keep putting them into a dying state. They pull a survivor off a hook. I mean, you down the survivor, they pull the survivor off a hook. You walk over, you down them again, and then you go after the other survivor. You wait a little bit for somebody to pick them up, and then you can go back over to that area. Just keep an eye on it, and then down that survivor, or down the survivor you're chasing. And you can get these speeds up quickly. I mean, if you're good at the game, they'll come naturally as you're playing. But I mean, if you're kind of bad at the game, you can easily tunnel to farm these downs. Once you get up to max of 5 tokens, you just automatically give them a 25%. If they're using a med kit, that's an extra 4 seconds. If they're doing gens, that's an extra like 16. Well, it'd be a fourth, so it'd be an extra 20 seconds on top of gens. Not very good on how this is implemented. It's too strong. I'd mix this with Hexpentimento, and they would have a 45% deduction in healing speeds. That's healing and recovery speeds, not repair. My fault. But a 45% and healing speed reduction. The recovery time, they wouldn't recover. Regular recovery is 32 seconds. Adding another fourth on that's 8, that's 40. And adding another fourth on that would be 16. 16 plus 32 is 48. It would take you 48 seconds to get up. At that time, if you ever go into the dying state 3 times and have to recover on your own, you're just dead. Crazy. If you want to have a token perk that gives survivors a penalty, you need to have some way to fix this to where they can counter it. You make it a hex totem perk. You can make it an obsession perk. Like save the best for last or something like that. You can make it like that. You can incorporate it. Again, look at perks that are already included in the game to get a sense of balance from them. You would see that Thatanophobia is different. You would see that, all the other perks that I talked about and explained, how they're implemented into the game, and you can get a better sense of balance. In your case, you needed to dig deeper and you needed to look at totem perk or token perks and see how they stack up and things like that. I said keywords: healing and token. Those are the two things that you're looking at or looking for. So this needs to be reworked. It's not extremely bad, but I would definitely decrease that to like 15% being the absolute max. I would say stop at 10%, but if it's only a 10% bonus, people ain't going to use it. But definitely, if you want to get that full 25%, you're going to have to make it something extreme that you need to do to get that. Really? Are we doing a regular Scourge Hooked and Hex? Why is everybody doing that combination nowadays? Why? Why? I don't understand. Everybody's always putting up a regular perk, and usually the regular perk ends up needing to be something else. They put up a Scourge Hook, and then they put out a Hex. Why is that the three things that you pick? Why? I just don't understand. What template is everybody going off of? It doesn't fit with this particular killer at all because he says that he uses his wolves to take survivors to hooks. So the wolves are just going to take the survivor to probably the nearest hook that's around if you want to even go off what this killer does and says. Galanonim noted what not to do. It's funny. He's killer has wolves that drag survivors to hooks. So as I said, it's going to be the nearest hook. So you're never going to really get Scourge activations unless you manually pick them up and take them towards a Scourge hook, or if you down them around a Scourge hook. I don't know anything about this killer, so I don't know its movement speed, what kind of pressure, or anything else that it has. This is why perks should go after the power. Because I'm going to have to come back to this to give any type of better review on it. Am I going to? Probably not. I'm probably just going to say the perk for what it is and go on. So putting your perks first, you have literally cut down the accuracy and the review that you're going to get from me. But anyway, Scourge Hook, Numbing Grief. At the start of the trial of Scourge Hooks. Each time a survivor is hooked on the Scourge Hook, the following effects apply. For the next 14 seconds, injured survivors that perform a cooperative action or self-heal will scream and suffer broken status effect for 40 seconds. 1. Why are you cursing every other survivor in the field for a survivor that is hooked? That don't make any kind of sense. It would make sense if it was, any survivor that's been hooked on the Scourge Hook gets the cursed effect. Any survivors that are cursed or, maintains this particular curse, which can be broken by, like breaking a totem or something like that, screams if performing a cooperative action or self-heal action. And then the activation would probably be longer than 14 seconds after a survivor's unhooked. It'd probably be like more like 30 seconds. And then if you hook all 4 survivors on Scourge hooks, you would have, that particular perk active till they all found totems and broke them. In that case, you would just run like Hex Pentimento with it, and you could rekindle 4 totems, if not 5 totems like that, if you run, this particular Scourge hook perk and like another Hex, like Ruin or something. You could force survivors to break totems and then buff Pentimento as kind of like a collateral type thing or situation. But this, one survivor gets hooked and the entire team suffers for it. Makes no sense. Scourge hooks and things like that are curses. A scourge is more of a curse or a disease or, something like that. That's why you have perks like Eruption, which somebody gets hooked on it, the generator blows up, or not Eruption. What's the other one? Is it Pain Resonance? When you get hooked on the generator goes, and the survivor on it, if they're working on it, screams. That makes sense. But making all the other survivors who are playing the game and doing things, the way they're supposed to be doing, suffer from an exposed status effect and a whole bunch of, or broken status effect, which broken prevents you from healing and all of that, is kind of ridiculous. And to make matters worse, this would be doubly effective on something like the Plague, or Legion, or something like that. Why Plague? Well, Plague already leaves everybody in the broken status effect, so I don't understand what you're saying. The thing about it is most plagues spend a significant amount of their time while chasing you, barfing on you, throwing up on you, barfing on you to get you to that broken status effect. Once you get to that broken status effect, then they come in and they go to give you the old wombo combo. This expedites her process to where you're already broken and you're already screamed, so she knows where you're at and she knows you're broken. She can just walk over to you and she can just clap your cheeks. The best thing about it is if you run whatever Sadako's perk is when somebody's pulled from a scourge hook with it, you can see the auras of every survivor. If you stack that with stat, that one survivor who's doing the cooperative action will scream, will get broken, well, both survivors, if they're injured, will get that. You'd walk over to that particular area. Somebody would get rescued from a hook. You'd see where their auras are. You'd walk around and you'd just give them the old 1-2. And they'd go down. They're already broken, so they can't heal. So there's no point in doing the plague nonsense. It's also good with Legion, Nurse, or anybody else like that has a large amount of speed that they can get across the map. Same setup. They're going to be broken, and you're going to know where they are. So this combos with other perks, very good. The other perk, Sonico's perk, would actually work very, very good with Plague, because you can hook a survivor, go get the juice, the damage juice, and then whenever you find somebody, you could probably snipe them from quite far, because they're not going to know that they're tagged. They're just going to see some shit coming at them and down them. That's, ooh, that's a rough one right there. But this perk right here, needs to be, it needs either more added to it or it needs to be changed up. And another thing that doesn't make sense is you were scaling from 14 seconds. I mean, I understand borrowed time and all of that, but for 14 seconds, this perk is active. But when you get hit by it, you're stuck for 40 seconds. Also, don't double scale. Don't scale this up and then scale this up. Don't double scale. Pick one. For the next 14 seconds, they'll be or broken for 40 seconds. Or for the next 10 seconds, they'll be exposed for 40 seconds. Don't do both. There's no point in double scaling. If you need to scale both numbers, then set one number to its max and call it a day. The only thing you would get out of this is if you pull a survivor off a hook and then you immediately heal them. There's already a perk that punishes survivors for doing that. I want to say it's Pyramid Head's perk, but I don't exactly remember. Actually, there's a lot of perks that punish a survivor from unhooking and healing under hook. So that's generally one of the activations, what you can have that particular situation, a survivor healing another injured survivor. The problem with that is this says each time a survivor is hooked on a scourge hook. This applies, not after they are unhooked. So you're immediately missing the basic activation where this perk would get most, steam from it. The easy activation when they unhook the person and they heal them. You're missing that activation. So instead of hooked on, you should definitely do the opposite and when they're taken off of a scourge hook. Then put any survivors performing a cooperative action with that particular person suffers from the broken status effect, which I'm pretty sure that's already a perk in the game. That's why you didn't incorporate that way. I'm not going to look through and find it, but there's definitely a perk that's either exactly that or something close to that, where you heal the other person and then the person that heals you becomes broken because of it. I don't know why Pyramid Head is in my mind. I know he has a perk that's similar to that, but I don't know if that's the actual perk. But it does exist in some way, shape, or form. You also have perks like Make Your Choice, where if you're not within the killer's tail radius, that triggers as well. So, I mean, a lot of things. But as this sits, you have to rely on, well, one, you only got 14 seconds, and two, you have to actively hook a survivor, and you just have to hope and pray that somewhere out in the world in the next 14 seconds, people are healing or aren't healing. But once survivors know your particular killer, they're going to know that you have this perk. So anytime somebody's about to get hooked, they're just going to stop healing for 14 seconds, and then they're going to go back to healing. So it's very easy to counter, and it's not really giving this perk any type of push. But I mean, even if they're at the exit gate, they can just use it as a distraction to try to pull killer over to there. Walk over nearest the exit gate, scream, force a scream, try to get the killer to come over towards them, and then they run out the exit gate. But if you do it the opposite way around, to where as soon as they pull them off a hook, it keeps them from being able to heal, which is where the pressure comes. Especially if you're like a tunneling killer or something like that, you can let them heal and you can go for the other survivor who's broken and he'll go down in a hit. Or you can make it to where the survivor that just, well, that'd be kind of bullshit if you make it the survivor that just got healed gets broken. That's not a good idea. Definitely the one that's healing them. And definitely not both of them at the same time. Either way, I'm going to leave that at that. X Frostbite. The true trial has begun, the temperature of the trial grounds dropping. Once the exit gates are... Excuse me? What do you mean, the true trial has begun, the temperature of the trial's dropping, and then immediately go to the end of the game? I guess you're referring to the end game collapse, but it's a weird way to write that. I got you. See, once the exit gates are powered and there is at least one dull totem remaining in the trial grounds, X Frostbite activates and lights the totem. You need to decide right now before going any farther. Does no ad take precedence? If you only have one totem left, I'd assume Noad would take precedence, but I mean, I don't know. Frostbite might. If we go alphabetical order and all of that, Frostbite would go first. Who knows? So, if you're going to write something that's like Noad, you definitely should put something underneath saying whether or not Noad or any other perks takes precedence over this particular perk. For the rare situations, the where survivors are smashing them totems, and you're down to one totem left. For every dull totem remaining in the trial grounds, decrease the action speeds in healing, sabotaging, unhooking, vaulting, and open. Once the exit gates are powered, why this? It is it is the end game. The end game collapse, everything's happening, etc., etc. And you're going for healing speed, sabotage speed, unhooking speed, and vaulting speed for 4% per adult token. Do you realize that a 20% less vaulting speed would make it to where vaults are basically impossible? You might as well just block every vault location, because you would be doing the equivalent of a slow vault over the window, even though you're running at it. Again, when you are trying to do a whole bunch of different things, you need to spread them out and change and, spread them out. Take the time to look at every single thing you're affecting at the end game and set a term for them, or you're going to have these dumb situations. If all 5 are left, at 20% added to healing is going to be like 3 point something. That's 3 seconds of extra healing. Pretty negligible because they're going to be in the exit gate healing. So it's not that important. Or if it's at the end of the game, they're going to be trying to body block and things like that. Not really that strong. Sabotaging. Sabotaging takes 3 seconds. Adding an extra, let's just say a second to make it easy. It's going to be definitely less than a second. But let's say adding a second, actually would be like, 0.75 or something. But essentially an extra second to sabotage isn't going to do much. You're using Jake Park's part. You added a whole like 3 or 4 seconds to it. Not gonna do much. Sabotaging doesn't matter at the end game collapse. Unhooking. A 20% increase to unhooking speed is ridiculous. You're never gonna be able to unhook that survivor without being grabbed. Same with vaulting speed. Opening speed. Exit gates take like what? Like 30 seconds to open or something crazy? Let's see. Exit gate. 20 seconds. There you go. Takes them 20 seconds already to open an exit gate. And you're going to up that up by about 20 extra set or 20%, which is another 4 seconds. That's 24 seconds. Now that's relevant because that extra 4 seconds will allow killer to get across a longer map and potentially get a hit in if they're quick enough and pick the right paths and all of that. Or if they're a running killer, it gives them a large amount of time. It also makes good for in-game stall builds. Because it'll take them longer to actually open the particular exit gates. But most of these 20% is either detrimental or makes the game almost unplayable, or it does absolutely nothing. This is why it's not good to go out doing things like this. But then you gain an 8% haste effect for 8 seconds. Why are we double scaling again? After bringing a survivor to the dying state. NOAD only gives you what, like a 4% increase in speed. Why are you going over the base speed that NOAD gives you at any point in time? NOAD is the base. It is the bar. Very high bar. You don't want to try to go over that bar, because NOAD is fairly strong on its own if you know how to play the basic game. I mean, if you're running NOAD and you're bad at looping, they're just gonna loop the hell out of you and then go out the exit door once their buddies open it. So you do have to have skill when playing NOAD. It does give you a small speed boost though, to help you get around and help said survivors and things like that. And if you have problem doing loops and things like that, I recommend running a character that can intercept loops, or running any type of perks that can boost your speed so you can get around loops faster. So you can brute force loops as opposed to juke the actual survivor. Because I've seen people play and they just kind of chase the survivor as they're running through loops. They don't think about how to cut them off or fakes. They just literally follow that survivor everywhere they're going. And then they get frustrated and say, oh, the game's survivor's side. And I'm like, no, you just don't know how to play the game properly. You don't need a haste status effect, especially that high, for that many seconds after bringing a survivor to the dying state. Keep in mind that without agitation, you're still going to walk at 4.6 meters per second. So even if you down a survivor and immediately pick them up, you will be locked to 4.6 meters per second without agitation. So you're literally slugging at this point. You're going to use that haste after knocking somebody down to try to go and get to another person very quickly. This perk, well, all of these perks honestly need to be redone. But see, now that I've went over this and gave my opinion and all of that, all of it that I just said and wasted my time doing, it's probably going to change and have to be redone because, well, now I'm finally looking at the actual power and then my opinions based off of this. I'm going to have to go back in. Well, I should go back in and give another analysis. Am I going to? No. You're going to get the perks as they are and not if they're good for your particular killer or anything like that. Everything that I said about balancing and everything else here, if they don't fit your actual killer's build, guess what? None of that means nothing. Absolutely nothing. So I can't just basically start and say, well, your killer's built on this. This is not a good perk for your killer. And then go down an analysis and say, you know what, you can change to make this better for your killer. Because I have no idea what the killer is. It's why perks are not good going first. So there's the breakdown on that. We go to the power, which isn't even listed as a power. Bitter remains. An endless cycle of pain and misery. He stops at nothing to gain the attention of the entity. Okay, everybody is pulling from the same template, and it's starting to give me a headache. Do not say what your power is and then give a dumbass description of your power and then immediately talk about something else. That is so annoying. Absolutely, positively annoying to me. Where you have your power listed, say what the power does. Give me some basic activation or something about your goddamn power. Don't say bitter remains is the power and then give me some bullshit sentence and then start talking about other things. Don't do that. When you're listing things, list things how they're supposed to be listed. Make sure your power is your actual power, not a special ability. Keep things in order, sequentially. We go back up to the overview. No, it was up here. Power, bitter remains. That is what's listed here. Power, bitter remains. We scroll down to here. Power, bitter remains. What is this? This is not a power. So now I have no idea what bitter remains does. I don't know what the power button does. I don't know what it does. Like, I don't know what I'm expecting or anything like that. Again, I'm going to have to read down and find out what all of this other stuff is before I figure out what this is. Common bitter remains add-ons. That even more insult to injury. Anyway, lullaby, wail. The shred basic attack inflicts frostbite. So we're just adding in a random status effect called frostbite. Gotcha. Survivors passively gain frostbite while in the shred's wail radius. Let me take you on back years ago when the doctor's tear radius used to build up madness passively as long as you held your hand out. It's not a good idea. Because you know what I did? I increased my tear radius and then I ran all the add-ons that made survivors receive more madness off of the doctor just holding his hand out. Then I would stand in the middle of the map and I would hold my hand out and the entire map would remain infinitely in Madness 3. And as soon as they got rid of Madness 3 to back to 2, they would immediately build back up to Madness 3. They were unable to do generators. This is one of the changes why behavior changed the doctor the way it is. Because I used to run infinite madness builds with doctor. It made the game unplayable. It was funny as hell to do. Because you would just keep them in madness. They would stay screaming and all of that. And you would just walk over to a survivor, enter chase with them, hit them, down them, pull your hand back out, and then wait for them to go back up to Madness 3 again. Very bad to do because survivors can't do anything while in Madness 3 back in the past. So they couldn't heal the other survivor up or anything like that while in Madness 3. So you didn't even have to hook them. You just had to make sure your hand was out and you kept them in Madness 3. So I would go to the next survivor, chase them, down them. Mid-chase, if, they did something, spectacular, I'd just pull my hand out if I needed more time and madness the rest of the map so they couldn't pick that person back up. And it was a very simple game. So building up Frostbite while in your whale radius, which I think was like 40 something meters per second, not a good idea because they're going to constantly be receiving that at a large distance. Especially because this isn't just a lullaby to identify something, it's a lullaby with a power. I would recommend keeping it like Doctor and making it 32 meters per second with a 4.6 movement speed and making it based off your tear radius, which you can throw perks in to increase your tear radius. So I guess I'll still give you that perk review. You need perks to increase your tear radius. And play it off that. Make its tear radius deadly, not this lullaby that you have going out for it. But since its tear radius actually is going to be quite deadly and can be extended, I actually would decrease your killer's speed from 4.6 to possibly even 4.2 or 4.3, not even 4.4. Because this is no longer a ranged killer either, where you're throwing something or have to use any type of skill base to actually, inflict something. So you might actually want to decrease your particular killer's speed, possibly even all the way down to 4. And as survivors going to frostbite and all of that, or something happens, your killer's speed increases back up to about 4.4, where it should stay. Or you can make it 4.4, but when you're in this wailing form, put a time on it, decrease your speed significantly because you're going to be building up frostbite on a lot of survivors that are within your tear radius. You could pair this particular thing with whispers, and you can easily always be applying frostbite to survivors. Survivors passively gain frostbite while in the shred's well radius, eventually afflicting them with the frostbite status effect. Survivors do not passively gain frostbite while in chase. The frostbitten status effect, is it frostbite or frostbitten? Make up your mind. Status effect will gradually regress if near a fire barrel or in a locker. I don't know why you would ever incorporate a cold ass locker as being a place of warmth. Plus, you're probably throwing the little locker bed in for an Iron Maiden or something else type of activation that you can force on survivors, basically. But I don't agree with lockers being able to do that unless you can somehow prevent Iron Maiden and things like that from activating. I would just put barrels all the way around the map that help. I would not make it passively decrease. I would make it to where they hold like R1 on it. The survivor like rubs their hands or like does the generator type animation where their hands are like in that shit. Or they're building a campfire or something, and then after X seconds pass, their status goes down. But nothing too crazy to where they just literally have to just stand there and wait for their gauge to go down. It takes up too much time. Frostbite status effect 1. Surviving breathers goes unstable and louder. A snow like mist decreases the survivor's field of view. How do you decrease the survivor's field of view when they're in third person mode? Explain that to me. The field of view is specifically a first person mode thing. Third person camera has no field of view, per se. The only thing you're doing is decreasing what they can see out of their third person camera. But you're not saying how. This one sentence doesn't explain anything about how or how much. Is it like Freddy's like Dream World? Do they get like that sort of effect along the outside of their thing? Like, how does it happen? Is that just gone? Does it turn like icy and they just can't see out of that little couple of edges? How far in does it go? You're not saying or giving any type of example. You could have literally went into paint, showed a HUD, just a white piece of paper saying this is Survivor's HUD, and then colored in and said along this particular place, survivors will not be able to see or will have difficulty seeing. You could have even made it opaque and showed exactly what it looks like. It would have taken you all of 5 minutes to do, and you would have a picture showing exactly what this would look like. Albeit it'd be a little rough because it'd only be one color, but at least you'd be able to visually see what's going on. This ain't good enough. Now, what is this unstable breathing and louder? And now this is mixed with Strider and other things that are already available in the game. I don't understand what unstable breathing is. I know medically what unstable breathing is, but that's not what happens when you're out in the cold and have frostbite and all of that. Especially because you're going to be running around and things like that. You're not sitting still. Also, another question, when you're working on gens and all of that, do you passively get frostbite while you're working on gens? Because a generator is, well, in this case, is an engine that's actively running. Engines are extremely hot. Extremely hot when they're running. So you shouldn't be able to get any type of frostbite standing near an engine of that's that huge. Trust me. I worked on semis. Master certified diesel technician. Trust me. Engine get hot. Engine get very hot when running in semi. Either way, just something to look at when you go inside of main buildings. Do you get frostbite status? You know, things like that. You want to incorporate a particular status that happens to survivors, you need to go into an explanation. You're telling me what the frostbite does when it builds up, but you're not telling me the specifications of the frostbite. I like how it's set up. You talk about it up here, then immediately start saying what it does, but you're not saying how it's incorporated. You're just expecting me to know what frostbite status is and what it does and when it can be activated, etc., etc. The only thing I know is that survivors in chase don't gain frostbite. What if they're running? Does it incorporate faster? Is it slower? Because you're actively moving and you should be warmer? Does it hurt you when you're standing still? Like, does it build up faster? Does it work on generators? Does it work when you're inside? What if you're in an inside map like Gideon or something like that? How does that affect everything? Etc., etc. You need to go into detail about these things. This is an entire status effect. This ain't, just a killer power on what they can do. It's a status effect. This means this is going to be permanently in the game, which means this is going to be incorporated to future killers. You're not just looking at your particular killer now, you're looking at future killers or any other type of maps if they decide to put the status effect in like Osmond or something like that. If they, a status effect for every single map, the Eerie of Crows would might have like a sun style, effect. Cold maps will have a cold effect. Who knows? So if you're going to try to change a core aspect of the game, you need to keep in mind that this doesn't apply just to your killer. This will apply to anything in the future if they adapt this. Frostbite 2 increases survivors, like all of this. Increases volume of survivors' unstable breathing. Increases volume of survivors' unstable breathing. Why? Why are you repeating the thing that happens in phase 1 again in phase 2? Into phase 3. After it happens in stage 1, that's all you need. Don't keep repeating the same status effect over and over and over and over. We get that the breathing's going to be louder. Whatever that volume you want to increase that to, do it once and then make the rest of your stuff different. Decrease field of view. Hair radius is muffled and thickens the mist. I assume that's the snow-like mist that decreases field of view. Maybe this ain't even a HUD. Maybe this is like the regular mist in the map. I don't know. Again, it's still not field of view though. It's the field of view part that throws me off. Field of view, I immediately think the HUD that's going to be blocked off. I don't know. The only thing I can picture is just a mist being along the outer edges of your screen. Like this is your regular survivor screen from what you can see, and then to the left a little bit, there's some mist. And to the right and the up and the down, there's just mist. And then apparently it gets thicker and thicker to, I guess, you eventually can't see out of it. No idea. We also have repeats a lot. Breathing louder, mist thickens. Breathing louder, mist thickens. Breathing louder, mist thickens. Mist thickens. It's like we want uniqueness when it comes to something. Michael Myers, for example, tier 1, slow as shit, no tear radius. Tier 2, regular speed, increased. Vaulting, I think vaulting and lunge speed. Tier 3, the ability to insta-down and or kill a survivor. You also do have a severely increased lunging and vault speed and everything else. I think tier 2 increases vaulting speed. It might not. But basically, tier 1, completely stealth but slow. Tier 2, regular killer. Tier 3, the ability to either insta-down or kill. And then you have plays off of that like Scratch Mirror. Stay tier 1 permanently, can see through walls. The Judas, well, they changed it now. The insta-kill things, once you get the tier 3, you can just insta-kill survivors. Takes a longer time to stalk. And they played off of that to make it unique. This is not uniqueness. You should look into like Michael Myers. Or something like that. Or condense all of this just into one status. AKA the broken status effect. Makes it to where you cannot heal. The exposed status effect makes it to where if you're hit for a health state, you immediately go to the dying state. Frostbitten status effect. Condense this into one thing that frostbitten status effect does. In this case, I guess it would make a snow-like mist go around the edge of the survivor's screen. And that's it. Make it do one thing. There's no point in doing the tier 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if this is something you want to go about, you know, like power-wise or something like that, then this is different. But you immediately say status effect. Status effect in the game only does one status. They don't stack and do more and more and more and more type things. Madness is technically a status effect, but that is literally the passive that you get from the doctor's power. So I might as well shut this discussion down before it starts. Madness is the byproduct of the doctor's power, shocking the shit out of you. When you get shocked, there's no shock status effect. It gives you the madness status effect, which has different levels because that is literally the doctor's power. The doctor's power is to shock you and give you madness. Doctor's power's madness. That is his power. It's linked to his power. It's not just a status effect. It is his power. Frostbitten is a passive that comes from a basic attack or just from being inside of the lullaby radius. It's activated just like any other status in the game. It's not directly linked to power. It says the Shred's basic attack activates Frostbite. It says nothing here about power. It says Bitter Remains is the power. We don't even know what Bitter Remains does, and it's the power. No idea. This is just a status effect that occurs from that. Hopefully I understood or explained that. Special ability, Direwolf. Standing over a survivor, Press the active ability button and the wolf will drag the survivor to the nearest hook. 1. How in the hell is a wolf going to get a survivor that high? You would need like a werewolf almost to come to pick a survivor up and throw them that high to get to the hook. So not only does it not make sense, the things that I mentioned earlier, the time for a survivor to wiggle free from a direwolf is decreased by 10%. You know, 10% sounds real damn interesting when you think about it percent-wise, but when you look at it, because it only takes 16 seconds, you're taking off 1.6 seconds from the end. There's not a lot of time that you're taking off. The shred cannot perform direwolves while a direwolf is currently dragging a survivor. Well, I mean, obviously. What speed do they move at? A wolf ain't gonna be able to drag a human as fast as the killer is. That's what you need to start decreasing. It's like running Iron Will without agitation. Iron Will give you an extra 1.6 seconds. But if you're not running anything with it, it's not very good. That 1.6 seconds, I guess reduce the wiggle that you go back and forth is a good passive. But if you're not running agitation with it, you're not getting that extra speed or that extra distance that you can get off of it. 10% wiggle free timer does nothing in this case. You're talking about a bot that is going to pick this survivor up and immediately go to the nearest hook. Time really isn't a problem when it comes to that. The AI is going to know the pathing and all of that. If there's a survivor that's in the way, it's probably just going to walk around it and can continue on. But again, it says nothing about how the survivors that aren't being carried interact with this particular aspect. This is why I say get rid of this. It's not explained enough. It's not going to be implemented properly with just this. Get rid of it. Act like it don't exist. Or go back in and you want to do a lot more theory crafting, things like that with this particular wolf. And actually make a creation with it. Special ability, Frozen Retribution. Press and hold the power button. Special ability, power button. Special ability, power button. Special ability, power button. This is what I'm talking about. That makes me mad. And I knew they did it before I even read through all of this because everybody else has been doing it here recently. Don't make Bitter Remains your power and then make a special ability your actual power. This is the power to your killer. You are pressing the power button to activate this. This is your power. How in the hell can you put power button on something else and then call it a special ability? Are you really that dense? Like, actually, how do you manage to do this? How do so many people manage to do this? This is an ongoing meme now for my channel, is what it's turned into. So your power is not Bitter Remains. Get out of here. Your special ability is your Lullaby Wail. And your power is Frozen Retribution. From your power, Frozen Retribution, you press and hold the power button to activate it. Activation time? Who knows? Is there a slowdown for it? Who knows? How long does it take for it to, happen? Who knows? What happens during it? I guess we're going to find out. All survivors in your wail radius rapidly suffer frostbite. Gain a speed increase of 0.2 meters per second for each frostbitten stage. So you did incorporate something to increase speed passively. That should be about 0.1, and your killer should obviously start, like I said, down at like 4. Same speed as survivors, and as people get frostbitten, he gets power and gets more speed. Give it about 0.1 per. and limit it to no higher than 5 meters per second. Because there's 4 survivors. There's what, 3 stages? No, there's 5 stages. 4. That is not the proper way to do 4, by the way. You can't use Roman numerals and then put 4. It's IV. 4. 4 times 4 is 16. 16 is way too high when you're adding in 0.1s. That's like 1.6 meters per second added into the top of that. And you're wanting to double that with 0.2 per 1. No, definitely make it a 0.1 increase and then limit it. I'd say no more than 5, because 5 is kind of ridiculous. The shred cannot exceed a movement speed of 6.2 meters per second. Absolutely not. If all survivors are just mad frostbitten and all of that, but you never said how, you get rid of the frostbite except for standing near a particular fire barrel. You never said anything about, how long that takes and things like that. So I'm immediately gonna say no. With that much of a movement speed, that's ridiculous. Apparently, attacking or hooking a survivor fuels your frozen retribution power gauge. So you're also double dipping, hitting a survivor twice, then hooking them. That's 3 activations that you're going to get pushed towards that power, but it doesn't say how long it takes to fill up this particular ability. How many hits? How many hooks? Do you get more for hitting a survivor? Do you get more for hooking a survivor? How do things move up? Like, where are the details that we need for this? I mean, they could be down below because I see there's a lot of crap listed, but they ain't here where they're supposed to be. Again, I'm not going to scroll up to the perks and see if the perks are worthwhile for this particular killer. They're probably not. They're probably just random ass perks, but I'm not going to go back up and look and do a comparison now. So, the power is Frozen Retribution. The Lullaby Whale and all of that is just a passive, because survivors passively gain Frostbite while in the Shred's Whale radius. And then they rapidly gain it when within this. So this is an activation. That is literally a passive. The power bitter remains. He needs to just remove all of that. Remove that. Swap Frozen Retribution up and call that the power. I don't know how people are fucking this up. Every single review that I do, somebody made a bad template and everybody's going off of it. Like, come on. Look at it. Special ability, then you immediately use the power button. How does that go together? Add-ons, I'm not looking at add-ons. His main power situation, everything up there is messed up. So he's going to have to redo all of his add-ons regardless. We have a survivor. Athletic coach, or Damian Jones, is an athletic coach who puts the safety of others above his own life. His personal perks, motivation rush, referees, proficiency, and guidance greatly assist his allies in the back lines, ensuring their survivor before his own. I'll leave it alone. This already needs a lot of work put into it. I ain't even gonna add any more work. Perks, motivation rush. The desire to live can pull anybody from the deepest of despair. After repairing generators for a total of 100%. So, after repairing a generator. Why couldn't you just say, or even adding in one word to that, after fully repairing a generator? But, I mean, sure, after repairing generators for a total of 100%. So it is a cumulative. You can do 25% on 4 different generators or whatever. But I mean, just making this shorter. This should be left up top by itself. You need to put something around it or at least leave space. This, all of this needs to be put down below this, maybe double space to show what the actual perk is versus, you know, the lines and all of that need to be separated from it. Makes it easier to read. When they put it into the game, they'll do it in their style. But when you're separating things, you want to make it to where you can see exactly what the perk does without, you know, all the extra stuff. I went over a particular review quite some time ago now. I think it's been days. And they had this portion set up perfectly. The perks weren't balanced at all, but how it looked was moi. Win. It was very good. Very, very good. All survivors that perform a cooperative action with you recovered from exhaust status effect 24% faster for 25 seconds. This perk then deactivates. So this only works one time. That is terrible. I'm sorry, but that's yeah, that's bad. So you have to repair a generator. So that means you can't be chased by a particular killer at the beginning of the match, or you're gonna have a hell of a time trying to get activations. Or maybe you do want to be chased at the beginning of the match and then try to go for like an end game, you know, somebody used their dead hard to get away, you can give it back to them. I don't know. But that's just weird to me how this is set up. So after getting 100% of a particular gen, you know, done, any survivor that performs a cooperative action with you recovers from the exhausted status effect 24% faster for 25 seconds. So for this perk to be efficient, you would have to, one, perform a cooperative action with the survivor which has the exhausted status effect. Two, they have to have their exhausted status effect high, which means after they leave the particular killer that's chasing them or they lose chase or anything like that, they have to immediately basically run over to you and hop on the gen that you're on. That's questionable. Because generally, when I use my dead hard or something and I get away from a killer, I just go to the nearest gen nearest to me because by the time I work on the gen and get done, the exhausted status effect goes down naturally. So, in order to become a beacon to let everybody know that, hey, you're there, you would have to run whatever perk it is when you work on a generator. Every other person can see the generator you're working at. So you're going to have to run that particular perk, which can have the opposite effect on particular survivors. That, hey, there's a guy over there. Maybe I shouldn't bother him, you know, type situation. Well, he's working on that gen, so I'll work on this gen. Or if you're being chased by the killer, maybe I should avoid that area. So, in lobby, every time you join a new lobby, you're going to have to say, hey, I'm running Motivation Rush. Come find me. Or you're going to have to run Empathy and run over them for healing, which would only give you a 16 seconds of that particular activation. So, getting Motivation Rush to actually be efficient is going to be a pain in the ass. Because most of the meta perks are like, what, 45 seconds or something like that? But just for the sake of trying to give this some efficiency, let's say there's 60 seconds. This allows you to recover 24% faster for 25 of those seconds. Keep that in mind. This is not a direct 24, or let's just say 25% faster perk. It's not going to take 25% off of it. It's going to take 24% speed off for 25 seconds. I'm not going to do the math to see how much that saves, but it's very minimal. So off 60 seconds, you would do 25 seconds, and you would do, shit. Essentially, you'll be doing 1.25 times 25 seconds. So whatever 1.25 times 25 seconds is, that's how much that you would get off of that. I don't really want to do that math, but I guess I will, because, well, it's not that bad. 1.25 times 25 is equal to 31.25 seconds. So the maximum that you could save off of somebody's time, and that's not completely, you could shave off 31.25 seconds and 25 seconds. So we take that 31.25 seconds and we subtract 25 off of it. So 31.25 minus 25 is equal to, you are saving a total of 6.25 seconds using that perk at maximum efficiency. So if you think 6.25 or 10% is worthwhile when using your perk slot, and it only activates once, by the way. It's not per completed generator, it's just once. If you think 10% of the time is worth it, then by all means run this perk, but it's not very good. Now, it would be different if it was whoever does cooperative actions with you. As long as they're doing that cooperative action, they get like a 50% boost. However, how do you, get that help? Like, how do you actually incorporate that? Because once the perk activates, you're going to have to put a definitive time limit on it. How it sits here, don't, it's just not good. So let's say you complete a generator and it's your turn to go and save a survivor that's on a hook. They're on the hook. You pull them off. You start, healing them and all of that. Does that count as any type of cooperative action? Is my question. Does it, like, pseudo waste this perk? Or does it only activate when they're exhausted? Because the trigger is all survivors that perform a cooperative action. I guess it says with you. So, I mean, I guess technically you would both have to be working on a particular thing. So, two people would have to be healing that particular survivor. Which is a terrible situation, by the way. If both of you are healing the survivor and your perk activates, there's going to be an issue and your perk's going to be wasted. I don't know. This needs to be incorporated to where it's buffed and the activation can't be false. Also, why does it only last for one time? Why does it deactivate afterwards? Maybe they're being too literal about it, and by deactivating, they mean that you have to do another generator for it to go down. I don't know. They're not really telling me much. I have to go off what it says. It doesn't have anything that makes it foolproof to keep it from activating on survivors who aren't exhausted. Because its trigger is any survivor performing a cooperative action with you. If a survivor is coming across the map and they're at a couple of seconds left of their exhausted status effect, it'll trigger your perk. So why not just make it wipe the exhausted status effect from that particular survivor? Why make it decrease? Just make it just, or at least decrease it by 50%, or make it like sort of like brand new parts. Make it very quick and to where you can get, their exhausted status effect down quickly. Give yourself skill checks or something while forcing skill checks on the generator, either for yourself or for them. And if all the skill checks are hit, then they get 25% or 24% right off the top. Shoop! In about 5 seconds. Make the perk somehow stronger to where it's just not saving 10% of the time. 6 seconds is how much this perk ends up saving you, how it's designed. It is one of those examples of big numbers, but the person didn't actually do the math to see how big number saves. Anyway, referee's proficiency. When a totem is cleansed by any means, gain a token up to 5 tokens. Each token increases your unhooking speed by 10% up to the maximum of 50%. I prefer Desperate Measures, which is based off of any survivor and an injured, dying, or I think you even get the bonus if they're on a hook. Your healing speed and unhooking speed are increased by 15% per, I think it's like 14% actually. I think it's weird, but essentially 15%. I know it's the wrong number. That's what I'm going in because I'm rounding up. 15% per. More than enough. I know it's weird like 14%, but I don't feel like doing that math. I'm saying 15%. And that can stack. I see what you did there, Galanonim. I see what you did there. Okay, don't mind me. Funny. So, again, Desperate Measures kind of blows you out of the ballpark there. Also, cleansing totems not always a good thing to do. If you cleanse all 5 totems and they're running Hex Pentimento, you're in trouble. Cleansing totems also prevents boon totems from being placed up as well. So it's very anti-survivor playstyle. You'll be getting power from cleansing totems. Not good. Definitely shouldn't incorporate a perk that's going to screw over your team. Because if there's somebody's running a boon, then you can't use this totem. Or this perk. You just can't use it. Guidance. Your sacrifice proves further. Wait. Your sacrifice proves further your capabilities of leadership. Now that's a sentence right there. While you are further than 24 meters from an exit gate, guidance activates. All other survivors further than 28 meters from an exit gate. Gains a haste status effect while not in chase. Excuse me? This perk deactivates once you are within 24 meters of a hook. So this perk's never going to activate. I see. You know how hard it is on any Dead by Daylight map to be farther than 24 meters from an exit gate, all other survivors have to be farther than 28 meters from the exit gate. And you have to be 24 meters away from any hook. I don't even think there's a place on any of the Dead by Daylight maps where you can be 28 meters from any hook. So your perk essentially cannot be activated. Because I'm thinking about maps like the swamp and things like that, or even like Yamioka. But no, there's hooks everywhere. I don't think there's any spot on the map 24 meters in radius where there isn't a hook. Because even RPD, as broken as that map tends to be, it still has hooks within 24 meters. Because they fixed the one in the library. So no, this perk's not activatable. Yeah, there's no places. 24 meters? That's huge radius. There's going to be a hook. And survivors definitely don't need a 6% haste while not in a chase. So yeah, guidance. I don't agree with it just based off the principle of what it is, but it's not activatable. Animations don't matter. Direwolves Mechanics. Direwolves would push past survivors with them being a computer. Survivors cannot body block the hook interaction. Direwolves cannot be blinded, but Decisive Strike is effective on them. I don't want the Shred to avoid Decisive Strike. Much like the Unreal, the Sacrifice hook's lower for Direwolves. Direwolves can neither be activated in the basement nor go into the basement. Do the hooks lower for the Unreal? And if they do, that's because she's psychic. It's kind of what she does, you know? So it's actually her lowering the hook for herself if that does happen. It's not the entity doing that. But they can't be blinded, which is dumb. They can't be body blocked, which is dumb. So you're essentially giving them a free hook every time. So yeah, just delete this mechanic. There's no way for a survivor to save somebody being picked up by dire wolves. Delete the mechanic. You didn't put enough thought into that. You're the one weakening your power and giving yourself the openings of the AI to be broken or exploited or anything like that. You should accept the consequences with letting somebody else hook for you. You shouldn't be trying to make it to where the hook's gonna happen every single time. So the Direwolves mechanics, completely out. Absolutely not. No. Frozen Retribution. Much like the Oni, all players hear an audio cue of a short grass-like echo when Frozen Retribution is active. Short grass-like echo. My dude screams. Paying 300k for 300k blood points. Interesting. I mean, I have a website saved that I look at to get the blood point codes and all of that, like the Dwight's outfits and things like that that have came out recently. I have those. I've done it. So, I mean, I guess I appreciate you posting a code there. Let's see. Oh, welcome to the stream, the pillow. But now, the Oni, he screams. There isn't really a gasp like echo But I understand. When Frozen Retribution is activated, the shred plays a loud whale audio cue for all players. When Frozen Retribution is active, survivors in the shred's whale radius have a frozen rim at the edge of their screen. You just made it even more complicated. What the hell is a frozen rim? We talking about basketball? What is a frozen rim? I assume it's just a circular thing that goes towards the end of the screen, but that's still not enough. I would like to know how opaque, how thick it is, how much, obscuring of vision is it? Because it says that it gets thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker. So I'm assuming at the beginning, it's basically does nothing. It's just there as a cosmetic, and then towards the end, it's almost impossible to see through that. At least that's what I'm gonna go off of. Easiest way to do it is to do it like RPGs make the code come on, where your screen is sort of like gets frozen over time and it slowly creeps up towards the center of your screen until you eventually fall over. That would be the easiest way to explain it. Just a creeping screen like that, where you can still somewhat see, but it's cloudy. So you can see about 50% opaqueness barely through it. But you can still see what you're doing at most cases and what's around you, but it just gets worse and worse. And then it gets darker and darker and darker, and it creeps in until your character dies. Well radius. Well radius not only consists of him sobbing, but also a continuous gust of wind, just so it's a bit more recognizable. I like that. Um, those are the perks and what they look like. If you're interested in those, it's not actually that bad. It's not bad at all. That's definitely Dwight, by the way. Usually Meg is the one that gets mistreated due to her problems that she gave them during the beta. Well, it's either Meg or Dwight. If you've noticed, most of the Dead by Daylight trailers and all of that, it's either Meg or Dwight that end up getting punished, hit, slapped, thrown through a wall, or something like that. It's because those two characters gave behavior the most difficulties when they were initially implementing them. So those players or characters end up getting punished a lot. A lot. SCP 106 chapter concept, move from suggestions and feedback. Sorry about the long read. I tried to section things well and put TLDRs for each section. Note, this is not a chapter prediction or idea for the anniversary chapter. SCP. He wants SCP 106. I don't even know what SCP 106 is, so. I think SCP 106 is an incredibly great option for DBD, as SPZ in general is a good option. No, just because it's horror doesn't mean that SCP in general is a good option for DBD. The SCPs have a whole bunch of different kinds of things that they do, meaning that it's going to take a large amount of coding. And you also have to keep in mind that these beings have to be put under the control of the entity. So, like, SCP, whatever it is, the guy whose face, if you look at, he immediately runs through everything and kills you. Bad idea for Dead by Daylight, because you're literally dead as soon as you look at his face. Peanut. whatever his SCP number is terrible. Because as long as the survivor's looking at you, then the other survivors can just run and do generators. If somebody has to take their time to look at you, they're not getting points, which means they're not ranking up. A killer that can't move ain't fun. The gigantic crocodile, he's too big for Dead by Daylight. There's a bunch of shapeshifters that take the point or the place they kill and then take the place of that particular person. Again, they would have to kill to become a survivor. It doesn't work for the game. And there's a whole bunch of other SCPs that are like a pair of glasses or a Rubik's Cube or something like that. So SCP in general does not work for DBD. Yes, they have a couple of ideas that, if doled down, they could make decent killers, and the entity would be able to control them. But SCP in general is terrible for DBD, especially for the devs that have to try and code that. Crazy. Anyway, I don't know what SCP-106 does, so we're going to find out. 4.4 meters per second, 24 meters range. Height average. PD or PDLR? PDLR. TLDR. Too long, didn't read. Too dumb, learn reading. I don't know. A power that lets the old man into the... Oh, it's Larry. No, I think Long Arm Larry's the guy that you can look at. I don't know. I've always called this guy Larry. I don't know why I've always called him Larry. He's the dude that if you... I didn't think he was 106, though. So this particular SCP makes kind of like these black ink stains or blotches all over the place. And when he comes after you randomly, he just pops up through one of those. And if he catches you, he sends you to his pocket dimension. Once in his pocket dimension, you pick a pathway. If you pick the correct pathway, you get back out, and you're completely safe. If you pick the incorrect pathway multiple times, you will eventually just slowly bleed out and die within the pocket dimension. The pocket dimension can take you, it can be quick if you pick the door straight back to the outside, or it could take you through an obstacle that's deadly that you have to pass through to get back to the main room. Because you're just in a room that's surrounded by pathways you can take, and you just basically take one. After being in there for so long, though, you will eventually bleed out and die, because you are slowly dying the longer you're in the pocket dimension. At least that's how the newer SCP games work. The old SCP game, you could literally run around there forever till one of the traps killed you. But he's been since updated to cause you to bleed out over time. Again, you are creating another dimension or a map within a map. So not only are you going to probably request a custom map, which you've already said, you're going to have to create another map within that map. And if a survivor goes down in that particular pocket dimension, what happens? Are they just lost? Are they dead? What happens? That's a problem. And if you take away his pocket dimension, he's just going to be a mouse one. Actually, you know what he's going to be? He's going to be either a Demogorgon, because you're going to have to put down traps and then teleport in between both of them. So who is calling it this time? Game about health coverage. Cool. Oh yeah. Now I remember where I was. It's going to end up being the Demogorgon without the charge, jump attack, and all of that. He's literally just going to be teleporting from ink spot. Well, it's kind of like a void spot. Let's say void spot to void spot. And that's going to be his particular power, because the pocket dimension isn't going to be able to exist in Dead by Daylight. The killer can move, teleport, and do all of that because it's easy. It's already something that they've coded and developed. Moving survivors is going to be a lot more difficult. So the only thing you could essentially do is make a place or a map to where the basement is a little bit more larger than what it should be. Essentially, you'd be Gideon. The top of Gideon would be the regular map that you're running through. It would be extremely small. Actually, it'd be more like Midwich. So the map would be like the upstairs and downstairs of Midwich, and then the middle area would be the pocket dimension. Is essentially what you would be looking at. So yeah, Midwich would make more sense. Downstairs, upstairs, along the outside. Then the middle of courtyard area would be where the pocket dimension you get sent to. So if you get caught by this killer, you would be sent inside the middle area, and you would essentially have to escape. But then they would have to incorporate a bunch of traps and a bunch of obstacles and shit that you have to go through to escape. That's going to take time to do. And it's just really not worth it in the end. But go through this, I'm going to get rid of anything that has to do with the pocket dimension, because, well, that's not going to be a thing. Pocket dimension entirely mimics the normal map that has a different texture. So you're literally copying the map and taking it to another map. Do you understand the size of these maps? Dead by Daylight already takes forever to update. It's a hefty game. Please don't add in 2 more maps. Please don't do it. So if we get rid of the whole pocket dimension thing, which again, you can do a Freddy's filter effect and just make the filter pop over a survivor screen and get rid of all of that. So I guess I can go over this. So instead of mimicking the entire map, we're going to do it like Freddy. When you're in the regular world, you see the regular map. When you're in the pocket dimension in parentheses, it's just going to be like a Freddy Dream filter, but black, darker themed. That goes over your screen. Let's see. All interactable objects are in both dimensions simultaneously. Okay. Old man becomes much faster and leaves a trail of decay when he is outside the pocket dimension. Well, the whole point of, and I'm just gonna call him, I guess I'll call him Old Man. I want to call him Larry, though. When he's outside of the pocket dimension, he moves at 6 meters per second. That is ridiculous speed. He doesn't even move that fast regularly in SCP. At full sprint, as long as you, as long as you maintain full sprint, he cannot catch you in SCP. And you can actually slow him down because he cannot open doors or anything like that, and it takes him forever to phase through objects. So in this particular case, you could possibly increase him to like 5 meters per second. However, you would have to limit his ability to break pallets, vault windows, and things like that. Meaning, he's super fast, but he's easily exploitable. So all the survivor would have to do is drop every pallet in the map and continue on. So this would be a killer to where I guess survivors would have to set up before the map to ensure their victory, instead of the killer setting up in the beginning of the map. And that's what they would do, is they would literally just walk in, slam every pallet that they run by, And then they would loop the killer basically infinitely around a particular loop. And that killer would have to be extremely smart on where he tries to cut loops off and things like that to prevent the survivor from doing that. Again, this killer will be able to go through walls, but they'll phase through walls extremely slow. So you're going to be losing distance as you phase. And it's going to be like SCP, where as long as you have a place to run, he can't catch you. So I don't know how that particularly is going to work. Apparently, if you're put inside said pocket dimension, both dimensions are still connected. So if you do get hooked, they can save you through the portal on the outside or through in the regular world. The basement has a portal to exit the pocket dimension, so you can literally just get the basement and then you can exit that place or get rid of that particular effect. The exit gates and hatches have exit portals once open. The survivors cannot leave the trail in the pocket dimension. Gen progress and hook timers are both slowed in the pocket dimension by 25%. Well, seeing as though your particular killer is fast as shit in the regular world, why would they still ever want to be in the regular world? Your killer slowed down to 4.4 in your pocket dimension, and the only thing they have to deal with is an extra like 20 seconds on gens. I mean, that's not too rough. Especially again, your particular killer cannot break things. He cannot interact with the actual physical world. That's the whole point of this particular killer. He walks through walls in a straight line to wherever you are. Now, he will use stairs and things like that to walk up and down. So he can stand on objects, but he can't interact with them. He can't pick up objects. He can't break pallets. He can't vault objects and things like that. He just phases through them. So I'm trying to figure out how they're going to do something like this. So the old man can walk through walls, pallets, and other vaulting locations with heavily slowed movement, 1.6 meters per second. Cool. And can still be pallet stun. The gameplay would most often likely be ambush based on the ability to appear at will and walk through walls to catch survivors off guard, and then either hit and run or follow them through any obstacles to get the second hit. Good luck with that. You're going to get the first hit because obviously anywhere that you have your goo at, you can pop through. So as long as you put your damn goo near every generator, the survivors are kind of screwed. There's no way to get rid of the goo either. Wherever the goo is, that's where it's at. Whereas there isn't going to be any mechanisms or mechanics or anything to essentially avoid that first hit. Once he appears, you're kind of, you need to move. Now, it does take him a little bit of time to appear. He doesn't just pop out of nowhere and then, like triggering a hag trap and then hit you. It takes him a while to come up out of the goo and appear. So you'll have time to run away, but afterwards he's just going to have a hell of a fucking speed boost that he keeps that chases you. So again, the only really way to counteract this super speedy ass killer is just to drop pallets, force him to phase through walls and all of that, which he's extremely slow doing, and stay in a loop to where you can just keep, forcing him to phase, forcing him to phase, forcing him to phase, or walking back and forth between things. I mean, eventually the bloodlust is going to kick in and it's not going to work if he stays close enough to you. But there is a way to keep him infinitely off of you, despite his super fast speed. Ah, so you have to jump into the portal to unhook the survivor that's in the pocket dimension. I don't see this working very well. Even with taking it and doing it the easy way and just using a filter that goes over your screen that shows that you're in the pocket dimension. I still don't see how things are going to work that well for the killer. Yes, you can pop up wherever the hell you want, but you have to put the goo down while in the real world. And then you can teleport to it. So after you get done with setup and all of that, you're just going to be essentially teleporting from goo to goo, from generator to generator, forcing survivors off. Once you're in chase, they're just going to run somewhere, vault the window that's in front of them, and then just keep vaulting the window, honestly. Or if they're in a good loop, dropping the pallet, vaulting the pallet, and using the long walls to their advantage. There's not much you can do. It all comes down to your individual skill. This is like the ultimate mouse one killer. What does every mouse one killer want? They want speed. It is that simple. They want speed. And then the problem that happens is if you go to the pocket dimension, that speed that he has is gone. And all you have is a 25% repair speed timer. So you can take him down to 4.4 meters per second. And still, he can't break anything because that's against his character. So you could take him down to 4.4 meters per second and keep him at bay forever. But it would take you an extra 20 seconds to complete every generator. So, I mean, it's like, it's not very heavily designed. It's very huge, like, survivor-sided design. And this all comes because the pocket dimension like that can't actually be put into Dead by Daylight appropriately. This is one of the reasons why I said SCP, most SCPs aren't good for Dead by Daylight. Because you're going to want to try to keep to its theme, but you can't. It's impossible. We'll look at the perks. 3 perks that help ambush survivors get follow-up hits and slow things down a bit. Cries of the wounded. Injured survivors' cries are louder, and you immediately gain 1 stack of bloodlust when chasing an injured survivor. Your killer is already at 6 meters per second. You don't need any more speed. Again, this is all going to come down to your individual skill when it comes to a mouse one killer. You shouldn't be doing all of this craziness and super boosting and getting, bloodlust and all of that. You save the best for last if you can't do that. Save the best for last. You get a token every time you chase the obsession and allow them to escape. I think it's up to a maximum of like 4 tokens. You get a small speed boost. I think it's like 5% speed boost or something like that per token. So if you want that speed, at least earn it by using a perk that's already in the game, and you can use your phasing through walls to immediately get chases, and then lose chases. So I mean, obviously, instead of introducing a ludicrous perk like this, just run a perk that's already in the game. You're a mouse one killer, you need speed. Use it. Squelch steps. Your terror radius is reduced when not in line of sight of a survivor. Again, Ghostface has some shit that decreases terror radius when you're in chase and increases it when you're not in chase. Or something like that along those lines. There's a token perk. There's also a regular base perk. Now, the regular base perk increases your terror radius when you're in chase and decreases your tear radius when out of chase. Ghostface's perk decreases your tear radius when you're in chase. That's how that goes. So those already exist, and it's specifically chase or not chase activated. Line of sight does not work very good in Dead by Daylight. That's why the stalking mechanic and all of that is a thing. If you've ever played a stalking killer, even if you see some survivors, sometimes you won't get stalk progress if they're too far away. Even if you're literally looking at them. The game's like, nope, you don't actually see them, you're not close enough. Or you'll start getting stalk progress on a survivor that you don't even see. The game's like, oh, you definitely see this survivor, and you're like, I don't even see them, but I'm gonna keep looking because I'm getting my, my stalk. They'll be behind like a barrel or something, and the game's a little bit buggy when it comes to stalking, and you'll still get progress off of them. Weird. Scourge hook, no man's land. When a survivor is unhooked from a scourge hook, they are mangled, and all other survivors receive a hindered penalty until the mangled survivor is healed. No. Why put something in like that? That's literally saying, hey, I'm going to force you to do what survivors do anyway, but I'm also going to make it difficult as hell for you. Why? Why not give... Well, I mean, you don't want to give the goddamn survivor that's unhooked some nasty ass effect, because, I mean, a tunneling killer would literally just eat that motherfucker up because they ain't ever going to get healed. What you should do is do sort of like a... Not like a fearmonger effect, because that's blindness and exhausted. I mean, it'll keep them from using dead hard to get away. But you need to, set up a situation like that. If you want to make it to where the particular survivor getting unhooked has to be healed, fine. But a 10% hindered penalty until the mangled survivor is healed. Imagine basement camping Bubba, my prime example. He has his chainsaw, man. He lets you go down, and he lets you get that unhook. From that base, that survivor's mangled, which doesn't even really matter in this case. But the one that, well, all the other survivors in the map, actually, not even the one that unhooks them, all the other survivors in the map are now going to be stuck at a movement speed at 3.6 meters per second until that survivor gets healed. Keep in mind, you have no fail state or anything like that. That if they change another state or anything like that, it goes away. So that survivor gets unhooked. You walk over to the mangled survivor. You slap them down into a dying state. And let's say you even let the other survivor go, because at that point it doesn't matter. That particular survivor is in the dying state on the ground and mangled. So not only do they have a 50% heal that they have to go through, they also have to make him recover. So you have to pick him up off the ground, which takes time. Then you have to go through this mangled mess of healing them, which takes time. And that during that particular period where that survivor is constantly being healed, everybody in the lobby is going to have a 10% hindered penalty. So this ain't even explained to have any type of fail-safe or exploitation preventatives in it. And that's what I would personally do. I would let them unhook the person. I would use like Insidious or something like that, or maybe even Devour Hope. And I would wait for them to take that survivor off. They're going to be hindered. They're not going to get very far. I'll just walk my ass back over there. And I would clap that survivor's cheeks that they just unhooked again. And everybody's going to be punished for it forever. Hell, I could hook that survivor again. And then until you take that guy off the hook and then heal him, you're going to have the 10% penalty. After that, I could hook him, then turn my attention towards the other guy who's trying to escape me, but's only going at 3.6. Find him, clap his cheeks, hook him. If you get double scourge hook activations and you're just that lucky at that situation, that would be a 20% hindered penalty. So, I mean, you could run a backpack build, take one down, take them to a scourge hook, go find another one, take them down, take them to a scourge hook, and then just run back and forth between the scourge hooks, or go after another survivor. Like, it's ridiculous what you can do with a perk that has no limits, and how hindered survivors could get. Most times you don't want to go beyond a 5% hindrance. That is the upper limits of that. And you only want to apply it for a couple of seconds, not a long amount of time, because it severely slows survivors down. Keep in mind, at a 10% hindrance, survivors are moving 1 meters per second less, well, 1 meters per second, less than any killer is at that point. So a killer actively chasing them is going to gain 1 meter per second, or 1 meter per second on that particular survivor. Scary thoughts. Add-ons don't need to go there. Moris don't need to go there. Don't need to go there. Don't need to go there. And don't need to go there. The Grand Masquerade, I actually already went over this before. Doesn't look like nothing's changed. It's just been comments on it. Honestly, Dead by Daylight forum, I wish instead of putting new or 9 new or new here, when anybody commented, you differentiated between the two. Updated. It'd be put anywhere like at the bottom here or something, or even underneath their name or somewhere showing that their concept itself has been updated. As opposed to saying new when just somebody comments on it. Because it makes it, if you're trying to actually keep up with a particular person's concept, and it's a popular concept, you just have to keep checking back, checking back, checking back, checking back, checking back. Why not just say updated? So I know that they updated their thing and then leave the news for the new comments and all of that. It's a pain in the ass happening to go through all of this stuff, check and see and try and find whether or not it's updated or not, or whether somebody just posted a comment. Um, I mean, let me go over this and give my thoughts first. These are add-ons for maximum prestige players to help you get iridescent shards. More iridescent shards after game. The only way to get iridescent shards in Dead by Daylight as of now is linked to leveling up. The more times you level up, the more shards you get. It's to reward you for actively playing their game, things like that. And actually, being a good player. So you're rewarded for playing well and leveling up, etc., etc. The problem is, I mean, I understand putting it at the end of Prestige 3 and all of that, because, once you get Prestige 3 on the majority of your characters, especially with them giving out blood points for free all the time, it's very easy to do. It's very easy to max characters, especially the ones that you like, and afterwards you just have blood points sitting there. And you're just like, man, what do I do? Like, I find myself just wasting blood points nowadays just so I don't go over the max cap. It's like, I understand you're wanting something new, but giving people more iridescent shards is not what you want to do here. That's not only game breaking, you're defeating the purpose of them selling the Orm spheres, Orm, I want to call them Orm shards, but whatever they are, the Orm that you actually have to pay for to get the characters. Now, keep in mind that iridescent shards, you can't get any contractual killers. You can only unlock, extra things like Hag and Legion and all of that. You can't get Ghostface or, any of the new killers like Sadako because they're contractual. They have to be paid for. So it's not like an insanely bad amount of things or a bad thing to give people iridescent shards that are Prestige 3. However, it's terrible because that's the only thing left that you can work for in the game. You don't want to speed that up. Because once you have iridescent shards and all that, granted, they cost like 9,000 to get one that's on sale and an upwards of like 10, 20,000, something crazy to unlock different characters. But if you're actively playing the game, you're going to be leveling up very quickly. Now, I can agree with, being Prestige 3 with a particular character and playing that character and leveling up actively. You should get like a 5% bonus on the amount of blood shards you get. You know, just something as a thank you for playing our game and sticking with it. I could see them, upping the amount of iridescent shards you get per level up and making it scale better. But giving you items that you can just throw out, get up to 80% more or 80% chance to get iridescent shards, which I guess this particular person doesn't understand that they don't just come randomly, they come when you're leveling up. I don't think they understood that base of that. You don't just get them randomly after games, they only come specific times. But making it to where you can get them randomly, not a good idea, in my opinion. People are going to be speed running through Dead by Daylight quicker than what it'd generally take. Dead by Daylight's kind of based on the livelihood of the killers, new killers, and things that are coming out. And they're keeping their community by trying to give us, enhanced content once every 3 to 6 months, generally. So as they're actively working, the community kind of sort of has something to work towards, aka getting every character or every perk and, the Shrine of Secrets and all of that. The way it's balanced now, if you play actively, by the time the new week's worth of Shrine of Secrets perks comes, you should be able to pick up one or two perks off of that particular shrine. If you play every day, hours and hours, you'll be able to pick up two, possibly even three if you're just god tier at the game. If you're a filthy casual like I'm starting to become, because I don't play the game as much as I used to, I generally get about 2,000 shards per Shrine of Secrets. So per 7 days or 14 days, or I think it's 7 days. I think it's a once a week thing. But every time it updates, yeah, I think it's 7 days. Final answer. But anytime it updates, I generally have like 2,000 ready to go, or at least 1,500 at the bare minimum, so I can just play a couple of games and get it within the 7 days. If it's a perk that I like or want. You extending that, you're going to have people that are avidly playing the games being able to pick like 3 or 4 and just stacking up shards on shards on shards on shards. And they're going to be able to get every single killer in the game. Once you get every single killer of the game and all of that, and you reach that end point of there ain't shit else I can really do. You rather try hard, try to get in, into a competition or all that, or become a content creator, which most people do. Honestly, once you get pro at a game, you go to content creation because there's nothing else you can do. Or you go tournaments. After tournaments and all of that, and going pro, you then end up content creation. But at the end of whatever road, generally turns to content creation because you become well known because you've been in the scene for a long ass time. People know that you're good. They want to see, how you became so good, your tactics, how you play, etc., etc. They want tutorials and things like that. They want to interact with, the great things like that. So you end up going into content creation because, I mean, it's kind of easy money at that point. You've made the name for yourself, so you've built up to it. Why not bask in it? Last one I'm going to do is the sister location from FNAF. The Circus Baby Survivor and Michael Afton. Nah, it's the same one. We did this before. They're just posting comments on it. They updated this and that. Yeah, this is the one with the scooper and all of that. I've done this one. Bound by Hate. I don't think I've looked at this one yet. 151 posts. Let's see what you got, Yakari Alpaca. New killer, the Deadeye. Not to be confused with the Death Slinger. We're already at ability 1, ability 2, perks. Interesting. Deadeye. I'm gonna assume it's a 4.4 meters per second killer with a 28-meter tear radius. At least that's what I'm going to assume, because there's no information. Ability 1. Hold the ability button to draw the Betrayer, a signature revolver wielded by the Deadeye. While drawn, press and hold the basic attack button to fire the Betrayer. Survivors hit by the Betrayer's range attacks are afflicted with stacks of execution. Okay, I've done this particular review, I should say, a long time ago. Long time ago, when there were a lot of people trying to push weapons into Dead by Daylight. So long time ago. I've done this. And instead of just bringing that post back up from the past, they literally just, I guess, copied and pasted it, which is why this looks like how it is. There's no killer description. It just says ability and perks and things like this. Because it was copied and pasted. That's why that looks funny. But can we find one that isn't from the past? Half-Life chapter. I mean, it's from the past, but it's new, so I guess we'll let it slide. Let's see. Killer, the zombie. Again, don't use generic names like the zombie, because if they give a zombie, that pretty much prevents them from being able to use the concept of the zombie for any future names. You got to think about that when you're implementing a name. So, I don't know. I'm going to call it the zombie, but you should definitely change the name of the zombie from the zombie. If Gordon would have a crowbar. If Gordon has a crowbar, no killer shall survive. You would body the entire killer roster. Exactly. No killer survives crowbar. So for now, we're gonna say the zombie. Speed 4.6 meters per second, terror radius 32 meters, height average, weapon claw, power, host body. The body of the zombie, stripped of all its flesh and organs, is empowered by the parasite that controls it. The parasite grants the zombie inhuman ability. Ability, climb. Ugh. I can't tell you how many concepts in the past brought up the ability to climb walls and things like that. You know how hard that's going to be. Again, you should make it to where your particular killer can just look up at like an open window or something up in the air and they can leap to said window. It's essentially just a vault animation, but extended. They jump up to the window, they vault the actual window seal, and then they can continue on doing what they need to do. The reason I say windows, because the windows themselves already have animations built into them, and it makes things particularly easy to code. So if there's an open window, you can vault up to it. It's kind of like a passive type thing. Now, if they want to, they could make it to where the Demogorgons jump and things like that can be, upwards and you can aim the direction that it's going. However, one, invisible walls are a bitch. Two, glitches and other broken things like that are a bitch. And three, it's going to break a lot of things in the game. A lot of things in the game. So if they want to spend the whole 6 months it's going to take to remeshing the walls, redoing their barriers, and all of that, they could allow you the ability to jump wherever you want, etc., etc. But I doubt it, especially because they have literally taken maps off of the game to prevent Demogorgon parkour and survivors dead harding, parkouring and things like that. They specifically deactivated maps to keep that from happening. So they don't want that by design. Alright, the ability granted to the zombie by the parasite allows it to scale vertical walls. Holding the left control while approaching a wall to scale it, while on the wall, the zombie may perform a leap or drop down the other side of the wall by pressing space if the wall does not have a ceiling. While the zombie is on a wall, host body charges are consumed over time. If host body hits 0 charges while on the wall, the zombie drops down automatically. Again, just make it to where it can leap the windows. Just keep it simple. If a window's not on the ground, they can just leap through it. It gives it a vault animation, whatever that animation is. And then they can continue on if they're within a specific set of meters to it. Very simple, allows you to go upstairs instead of going through the main doors. Very instant or easy to incorporate, nothing crazy. Leap while climbing, no. Instead of leaping while climbing, make it leap regularly, like the Demogorgon. Just give him a leap. Regular leap for a regular killer. That's all you need. This will give you the ability to also, its power is not host body. Power is not host body. It's passive might be host body. Its passive gives you the ability to do these, but its power is not host body. Neither of these have anything to do with the power button. So as of now, this is just a mouse one killer that can climb and that can leap. That's it. Again, you're going to want to keep the leap regular, not based off climbing, but just a regular leap, so you have some sort of way to down survivors or pressure them. And then your climbing ability will just allow you to get upstairs or downstairs on particular areas of maps. It could be helpful in a chase or if you're going for a particular generator. To just climb through a window and continue on to save some time. Perks, Paranoia. When a survivor interacts with a generator, chest, totem, hook, while inside your terror radius, they hear a distant terror radius for 8 seconds. If they are inside of your terror radius while interacting with something, and the terror radius disappears, they're either gonna A, assume that you're a stealth killer if they haven't seen you before, or B, they're gonna know that this perk is activated. Terror radiuses just don't magically fade out to distance as soon as you start touching something. It's a slow fade out effect. So I don't understand how this particular paranoia is going to work. This would be good for stealth killers if it wasn't based off of terror radius. You know, you work on something and then they hear a terror radius like you're approaching or something to try and make them run away. But this doesn't really, it's kind of butting into itself. It's letting you know that, hey, the killer is kind of still near you. I don't know why you would ever be messing with any type of hook unless you're in the terror radius messing with a hook, unless the killer is actively heading towards you. So, hook doesn't need to be added there. Chest doesn't really matter. I mean, once you work on the chest, you're probably going to finish the chest regardless, unless that killer comes around and it's going to enter chase. So chest really isn't important for this either. Generator, you're going to be looking the entire time, so if you hear the doom 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 doom, you're already expecting the killer to pop up regardless. Even if the distant terror radius happens, you're still going to be on guard, ready for it. I don't know about this perk. I mean, I guess it's fine how it's implemented, but I don't see it being very useful or being replaced with something. I mean, why would I replace this with Dead Hard or Adrenaline or, you know, any other perk? Or Dead Hard Adrenaline. Killer perks, crazy. I don't know why I'd replace this with Ruin and all the other meta perks. I was trying to keep my thoughts together, and I ended up saying what I was going to say next first. What I was going to say after that, which I kind of just pre-spoiled, is this would be good as sort of a survivor perk. If you're working on a generator, chest, token, or any of that while in the terror radius of a survivor, they can hear, you know, sounds of you and all of that at a distance to try to lure them away. But I ended up combining it together and talking about the killer and survivor at the same time. Kind of funny. Not very good for killer, could be interested or interesting for a survivor perk though. Lurker. Yeah, you want to lie in wait to ambush your prey. This perk charges up over the course of 30 seconds while you are not in chase. When Lurker becomes fully charged, you gain the undetectable status effect for 14 seconds or until you start a chase. If Lurker ends as a result of you starting a chase, your terror radius becomes 48 meters for 5 seconds. But why? Also, this perk is going to be triggered by the huge terror radius of this perk very often. I don't think they noticed the butting of heads there. Fully charged and you enter the undetectable, you only get 14 seconds of undetectable per 30 seconds of you not being in a chase. So you're essentially going to get one undetectable status effect for 14 seconds every other chase. Because if you're going 30 seconds without finding a survivor, that's bad. That's like real bad. You should be hooking survivor and immediately heading off to another generator or survivor to intervene. So every other hook or every 2 hooks, you should get an activation of undetectable. If not, oh my, you need to run some perks that give you, like, barbecue and chili or something, or Sadako's perk or something to give you a way to go, because good lord. And I mean, I guess it'll help whenever you're able to proc it, but I'm not there with you, Chief. I understand why you can't make it too powerful because Ghostface and things like that suffer. Ooh, I sneezed. Ghostface and other stealth killers and all of that. It would be pointless to basically use them stealth wise if there's other things that you can run that gives you the undetectable. You also have to balance it with like Pyramid Head's perk that after you kick that generator, you can I think Pyramid Head's perk gives you like 60 seconds though. It gives you 30, 60? Either 30 or 60. 30 sounds more meaningful, but it might be 60 after you kick a generator. Let's see. What is it? I don't remember. It's not Force Penance. I know what Force Penance is. Uh, that's not Trail of Torment. It's not Deathbound. Whose perk is it? Is it Deathbound? No. Maybe it's not Pyramid Head. Whose perk is it? Hmm. Not Pinheads, is it? No. Ah, I don't remember. Somebody has a perk that when you kick a generator, you get the undetectable status effect for X amount of time or till the generator's worked on again. I always thought it was Pyramid Head's perk, but I just don't know. Is it Trail of Torment? Oh, it is Trail of Torment. After kicking the gen, you are granted the undetectable status effect till the generator stops regressing or you damage a survivor by any means. That changed. That got changed. I know that's not right. You become as long as the generator is regressing or a survivor is putting to the dying state by any means. I know that top one ain't right. So it is by hitting. Not 4.3.0. Now deactivates when the survivor is being repaired or when it's hit. So they did change it. Okay, it's hit, not dying state. I was not aware of that nerf. Gotcha. So the top is right. All right. Back on track. Trail of Torment is what I was talking about. After you kick the generator, you get the undetectable status effect until the generator stops regressing or you damage a survivor by any means. The aura of the generator is revealed to all survivors in yellow, so they know. It has a cooldown of 60 seconds. So that particular perk will give you 60 seconds every 60 seconds as long as you go to a generator and kick it. While this, you have to be out of a chase for 30 seconds. So you would get an activation like once every other hook if you're playing the game like you're supposed to be. And this only lasts for 14 seconds, whereas that lasts until you hit another survivor or they walk over to the generator and untick it. So you would get more value out of Trail of Torment than you would out of Lurker. Unbound. Unbound by the restraints of a normal human, you are able to move frighteningly fast. Every 20 seconds you spin in a chase, you gain 1 token up to a maximum of 3 tokens. Not bloodlust, but sure. Press the space bar to consume 1 token to quickly dash 4 meters. The direction of this dash is determined by the direction of your movement input when activating the perk. This perk has a 5-second cooldown whenever a token is consumed. Let's not. Your 4-meter dashes, which is essentially a lunge attack. Let's not give them that lunge attack. And give them a maximum of 3, especially for every 20 seconds in a chase. Let's not. Because you'll have that dash, plus you'll have your lunge after that dash. So this is essentially an easy way to get coup de grace. Hell, and if you wanted to, you could actually use the dash and use the coup de grace lunge. And you could essentially just escape to whatever survivor you need, downing them. It's kind of crazy thinking about it that way. But no, coup de grace is a thing. It has a well, I didn't say hard activation. It has a decent activation for a reason, because if you can just get it every 20 seconds, that's ridiculous. Because what I would do personally in this situation is I would get a token, down a survivor, hook the survivor, run Devour or something like that, get out of range, get the token for Devour, and then I would use that token, well, as many tokens as I could accumulate during that chase to zoom my ass back. Now, there is a 5-second cooldown, but every 5 seconds I can get 4 meters of speed. Easy. And I would just zoom back towards them. And tunnel. The ultimate tunnel thing. The reason why things like that don't exist. Why are my allergies just destroyed today? It even rained outside. Why are my allergies just blown up? Oh my lord. Everybody knows about Gordon. Or at least everybody that's within our age group, millennials, I guess I should say, know about Gordon. I shouldn't have to go over Gordon. Perks. Quick learner. The circumstances you find yourself in require you to quickly learn how to use the tools you're given. Items you retrieve from chests have a bonus 60% efficiency. Bad for most things, good for Toolboxes? Honestly, you could just leave that on just for toolboxes and it'd be just fine. Flashlight that lasts 8 seconds gets an extra 4 seconds. Good, I guess. That's the beamer, I think, that lasts like a total of 8 seconds or something like that. You can give it all of its batteries and all of that other stuff and then get an extra 60% efficiency. And make it last kind of long, but you're getting rid of the better add-ons for it to extend that burn. So, I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword. Medkit's getting a 60% efficiency, not very good because you're not going to be able to finish up the heal unless you take like self-care or something like that. I mean, it'd help for one medkit that gives you 1.5. I think it's like 24 charges. It would help with that medkit to where you don't have to run anything else to get 2 heals, but if it ain't that specific medkit, it doesn't really help you get that full heal. Flashlights, it's kind of a meh. It's not good, it's not bad. Toolboxes, it's amazing for, specifically the Commodious toolbox that has like 32 charges or something crazy. Having another 60% efficiency on top of that would give you quite a bit. You would have enough to do beyond half of a generator. And if you stack that with the other toolbox add-ons and all of that, that allow you to get more charges and all of that in, you can increase toolbox usage. Now keep in mind, toolboxes fall to the same category as the thing that I did earlier that only had ended up being a 10% increase. Big number, but doesn't really give you much time because these effects are over time. Increasing its efficiency is amazing though. However, this is an efficiency increased over a long amount of time. So you're not going to essentially do anything faster. And it's not going to be a huge increase in time being 60% efficiency or better. It's still going to take a while for you to do toolboxes. You're still going to be locked to whatever it is. If it does 25% faster over time, you're still going to be locked to that that efficiency. You're still going to be locked to that time. It's just going to be more efficient as you go through that time. So it'll last longer, giving you more efficiency because you can use the item longer, giving you more time to use it. But you're still locked to that initial speed. So instead of the 6.2 or whatever seconds it came from earlier, you'll be able to go slightly longer, and maybe you'll shave off 10 seconds by the end of that, as opposed to 6 seconds. You're saving an additional 4 seconds off of it. So, I mean, yeah, an extra 4 seconds, cool, but, you're using a perk slot for an extra 4 seconds towards the end of that same scenario earlier. Extraterrestrial expert. My sinuses are going to mess up my teeth again. Well, I guess my throat is what was happening. My sinuses drained. That's what caused my throat to start hurting and all of that, which ended up going up to my jawline, all the way down the side of my throat, and it's doing it again. It's very annoying that I'm probably going to end up getting sick again due to the sinuses draining and all of that. Oh well. Extraterrestrial expert. You are greatly familiar with the otherworldly. Extraterrestrial expert. Start with 5 tokens. Hey, the Demogorgon's a good boy. Extraterrestrial expert allows you to perform the following actions at the cost of 1 token. Interact with generators and exit gates blocked by the entity up to 6 seconds. I could understand the exit gate, but the generators is irrelevant. Completely irrelevant. Well, I can't say that. Let me say exactly what I'm thinking. Once you put in the ramifications on what you can or cannot block, it becomes irrelevant for generators. The only thing that this particular interact with generators and exit blocks does is counter Sadako's perk. Fury something. Storm of Fury, Fury of Storms, Fury of something. If you miss the skill check, the generator pops, the generator gets covered for the 16 seconds. This will allow you to push through for 6 of those 8 seconds that you're missing. If you have multiple survivors with this, you can literally brute force your way through it. 6 seconds still isn't the greatest, but again, that Fury of Storms or whatever it's called lasts. So as long as you last 2 seconds doing that Fury, or 2% of the generator, during that particular Fury, you can then activate this particular perk and finish the generator off anyway, using the last 6 seconds. Most people, though, miss the first skill check as it pops up. So, I mean, once you start hitting the skill checks, you got it. Which is why I say it's kind of irrelevant, because you're either going to miss the first skill check or you're just going to continue on and hit the rest of the skill checks because you're expecting it. Throw pellets blocked by the entity. This is literally for claustrophobia, or for more importantly, I think it's called Mad Grit. I don't know, I always get them both confused. I call that perk and Mad Grit, I call them both the same perk, and I probably won't ever differentiate between them. The basic attack a survivor, all pellets within 16 meters become unthrowable for a couple of seconds. Well, it's more than a couple of seconds, but you know what I mean. So that is a direct counter to that. So you have interact with generators being blocked, kind of gets rid of Sadako's perk, or counters Sadako's perk, and really only specifically Sadako's perk. The 6 seconds on any other type of situation don't do much. All the other perks that block generators generally decrease gen progress, or at least are paired with them. Exit gates is more important in this case because anybody that's in the in-game collapse that has to deal with the Trickster's perk. I think it's No Way Out, I think is the name of the perk. Anybody that has to deal with that particular perk, 6 seconds on that is incredibly useful. Oats Darva did a build on where he literally would open up and execute as soon as the gen's done, and the survivors just didn't have enough time in most cases to escape, so they had to go through him to get out of the exit gate. That's a classic example of this perk at least allowing you to get 6 seconds through that and actually being able to escape. It is all the difference when it comes to somebody using No Way Out or a build like that to force you to leave out another door. Again, the survivors in his videos were dumb and didn't group up and try to run out together. Worst case scenario, one survivor gets clapped, the rest get out. But, some people ain't too terribly smart when it comes to that. Throw pallets blocked by the entity. That only counteracts 2 different perks. claustrophobia, which really ain't that important when it comes down to, the end of things, because it doesn't last that long. So it's most importantly that other perk that I'm gonna call Mad Grit, because I don't really feel like looking up the perk's actual name. And I'll probably call it Mad Grit to the end of time, even though Mad Grit isn't the name of that particular perk. It's a hex perk. I can even see in my mind what the perk looks like. I just don't know the name of it. I know what it does, all of that. Vault windows blocked by the entity. That is where this perk comes in handy. It allows you to get an additional vault on a window blocked by the entity. So instead of 3 vaults and being done, you can get 4 vaults. That would destroy killers' minds, because as you're chasing a survivor, you count the blocks 1, 2, 3, and after their last vault, that's when generally the killer will make their move, because they know that survivor either has to throw, let's say, kill shack pallet, or they have to leave the loop. So the killer, would generally fake to get them to do that last vault, and then they'll go and try to get that ass. If you get another vault hitting up your ass, that'll completely destroy that killer's plan. And they'll be like, what? He can vault again? Now, I'm glad that there is an 80-second cooldown per that, because you could really destroy somebody's mind for having 5 full tokens and doing all of that. The only problem I have is, one, there's no way to actually gain tokens, but you have a lot of things that you can do. So I would recommend limiting the upper amount of tokens that you can get. You have generators, exit gates, pallets, and windows vaults. That are 4 different things that you can particularly do. Interacting with the generators, again, is situational. The exit gate is probably one that you're going to want to use. But if they're not, blocking the exit gates using no way out or anything like that, that's kind of useless as well. Throwing pallets blocked by the entity. They have to be running a perk to block pallets by the entity. Again, it's situational. Vaulting windows blocked by the entity is something that bamboozle, you can easily, counteract bamboozled with and hit that vault and get out. Or if you vault the window 3 times, you can go through that as well. So I do think that the upper limit should be decreased. 3 tokens, I'm still like, that's kind of too much. The ability to throw down 3 pallets blocked by the entity or go through an extra vault, kind of eh. Because keep in mind, you are literally foiling one of the killer's perks if they're running something like that. So it's kind of it's unfair for the killer, but it's also fair because I mean you are giving up a perk slot to counteract one of their perk slots. But I would definitely make it no higher than 3 tokens. You shouldn't have to keep revolting windows that are blocked off. You should only do that in an emergency to escape. If they bamboozle Kill Shack and you're already midway running a loop, you can vault that window and then drop pallet and GTFO. It gives you an escape, but you shouldn't be looking to do that every time. Yeah, definitely 3 is the upper limit of how high I would ever set this perk. I do like it, but it is, again, very situational in what it can do. If you're not facing somebody using Sadako's perk or No Way Out, top's gone. If they're not using claustrophobia or bamboozled or the other perk that I'm thinking of that I always call Mad Grit, that's gone. if you're not running around and jumping the same window over and over and over and over, the window's not going to get blocked. So, I mean, you have two activations and tokens for the exit gate if that happens, or exit gate or Sadako's perk, or both. So, if you're facing Sadako, the generators and the exit gate, if she's happening to run no way out, that gives you a line there, and then one to get you through an extra window or something if it happens to be blocked, or the save your butt essentially. So one for speed for like exit gate, and then two other activations to save your butt during the game. So I guess, yeah, I guess the three is definitely the maximum. I can't see anything higher than three. And then protect it. You possess the means to protect yourself from various forms of danger. Protected starts with 2, 3, 4 tokens. Whenever you would be afflicted by the blindness, hemorrhage, mangled, or oblivious status effect, a token is consumed in place of you being afflicted by that status. Blindness doesn't really do much unless you have a survivor that's gone down and gotten hooked and you just don't know. Because like Fearmonger, when you're working on a generator and a survivor goes down, if you're paying attention, you can still know where they're at. It's not that big of deal, and Fearmonger wears off after time. So blindness really, I mean, it's good, but it's not something I would use a token to get rid of. You know what I'm saying? Hemorrhage, the only reason I'd get rid of hemorrhage is if there's an Oni. If there's an Oni, definitely I'd use this to get rid of hemorrhage. Mangled. I mean, you basically always want to get rid of mangled unless you're going up against a particular killer that doesn't have the means to break off, teleport, or do anything like that. Like if they're in a chase, it doesn't matter how long it takes you to heal. So that's not too terribly bad. But I mean, if you're just now getting unhooked and something somehow gives you mangled, it could be the game changer. Oblivious status effect is like blindness status effect. It's not really something that I would use a token to get rid of. I would rather just wait out the timer. If you know where the killer is, blindness, well, heck, all of these make no sense in, getting rid of. The only thing that I don't like is the fact that you can't choose which one it happens. You just kind of consume tokens. So you get 4 tokens, and as you start getting these different status effects, well, specifically those 4, as they come in, your tokens get hit or get taken. So if you get hit with, let's say, a Huntress's Hatchet or something, or any type of other perk or anything that has these particular status effects, your tokens are just gone. Especially if it's a killer that stacks, like Hemorrhage and Mangled go well together on like an Oni build. That's 2 of your tokens gone already. There's no way to get these tokens back once you lose them. So anybody that's just stacking status effects on people in any shape and form, aka Fearmonger, anytime you touch a generator, you're gonna lose a token. And it's not even gonna get rid of your exhausted status effect. You're still gonna keep that queued up, but it'll get rid of the blindness. Is that really worthwhile? You have to do the generator, but every time you touch a generator, you're losing a token. That's terrible, considering you can get rid of hemorrhage and a whole bunch of other things. So I would personally like the way to activate the particular perk to wipe whatever status effects I have in my screen at that particular moment in time, and not have to rely on, well, I hope he doesn't have this perk, or my perk's useless now. Or hopefully he's not running, hemorrhage on a Wraith build or something, or I'm just screwed. And I also wonder why just those four? There's other status effects in the game that you could probably have these take place of. Because, like, why would I run this on top of, like, Vigil? Yeah, I think Vigil is the name of the perk, to where anytime the killer tries to read my aura, it gets blocked. So they have barbecue and chili. I can just continue doing my generator and they'll never know that I'm there if I run Vigil. I could run that over that and be a lot more happier than just getting status effects that could or could not be useful to me. Alright, there's gonna be the end of everything today. As of now, the concept that I've been working on, I'm going to I'm gonna put it on hold. It's probably trashed. Don't even let me lie to you. It's probably gonna be trashed. I've been working on this concept off and on, but I haven't really put forth a lot of effort. It's just kind of something that I do, like if I'm on the toilet or if I'm bored and don't know anything else to do, or if I have side time here or there, I put a little time into it. It's not good enough for me. If I'm gonna release something, I want to release something that's, decent. So what I will do, if anybody wants to adapt this particular concept, I'm gonna read off. Oh, I'm not gonna be able to summarize this, am I? I'm gonna read off some of the things that it can do. I'll read off like 5 or 6 of the things that it can do. First, the whole process of this particular killer is he was going to be a magnet style killer. He was going to have like a positive or negative. There's a Pokemon. Hang on. Magnet Pokemon. Pokemon. Google images. Please don't sexualize this. Please don't. Actually, no. It's not a magnet Pokemon. It's a Yu-Gi-Oh card. I think it's literally called Magnet Warrior. Yeah, this guy. This guy right here. It's not even showing it. I didn't think it was going to show it on screen. Stream. See if I can click on it and pull it up. Beta, the Magnet Warrior. That guy. That's essentially what my killer was going to look like. Obviously, it's not going to be like word for word. He's going to have a magnet style crown that has the red and green or red and blue pulse. Well, it's going to be red and black in my concept, but red and blue. This is going to be like a helmet or a crown that he wears. He's going to be throwing magnets and doing things like that. He's going to have like a robe on. Sort of like you guys played Diddy Kong Racing. He's going to be sort of dressed like Pig here. And have a sort of like cape on. He was going to have a magnet crown and all of that. And he was going to have like a suit on, sort of like this, but it was going to be like esteemed. Like the old school, like noble attire is what he was going to wear. But he was going to have magnets and things like that, all magnet theme. But something like that is what he was going to look like. Now, he was going to have the ability to throw magnets that can stick to walls and can stick to survivors. If you throw a magnet, which he throws magnet, let me reverse. He throws magnet halves, not full magnets, halves. So you would throw one magnet half, which you would have, X amount of this and X amount of that. You would have, like primary button, power button would throw like the positive half, and then the secondary button would throw like the negative half. And you could set these decent kind of traps the where if, let's say, I hit a survivor with a negative half and then I threw a positive half on a particular wall, they would get hindered as that, like if they're near the wall, they would get a heavy amount of hindrance, and as they got away from the wall, the hindrance would lessen up, less and less and less and less and less as they run. It's not made to specifically slow a survivor for you to get a hit. It's made to punish the survivor for losing that particular loot or using that loop. So if I throw it in Kill Shack, like right between, the window and the pallet, anytime you hop that window and try to run those particular directions, you're going to be consecutively slowed, giving the killer a chance to catch up to you and do things like that. That's going to be the caveat. You can also hit them with a double negative or a double positive. Those, magnets, the opposites attract and in the same repel each other. If I throw something, a positive on you and hit you with another positive or hit you with double negatives, it's going to have a repulse effect. Where the closer you get to said magnet, the more hindered and the more awkward it's going to be for you to actually get through a particular doorway or something like that. It's also going to have a bunch of pushing effects and a whole bunch of other things. The killer has a specific power up mode to where he electrifies both of his hands, and he's holding two magnets in his hands, and those magnets become almost like superconductors. And they have a whole bunch of other enhanced effects and things like that, but I'm not going to get into that. Now, this is where things get interesting for the killer. The killer can gain movement speed or gain power depending upon what he throws and what he holds out. If you throw a positive magnet somewhere, let's say on the edge of a door and you're chasing a survivor, and then you hold out the opposite piece, as you get close to that door, it's going to pull you and speed you up as a killer. Almost like a grappling hook. The closer you get, the faster you're going to get. The superconductor obviously has the enhanced version of this. So you can increase your movement speed temporarily while chasing survivors and all of that by placing, different parts of magnets and things like that. You can also, again, once you get past that or around that magnet piece, switch to the opposite magnet and it'll push you and give you a pushing haste status effect. And it kind of works around that, the concept of magnets making you slower, faster, things like that. You can also, while you're holding the magnet out, you can press the, active ability button, and you can force the two magnet pieces to come together, creating a full magnet, which has its own special ability. So if I throw it, I can use the other opposite half to pull myself to it. Then I can pull that piece out of the wall and create a full magnet. And from there, I have things that I can use with the full magnet. Let's see. We go down. You can throw... that. You also have access to something called an anti-magnet. Where the anti-magnets work to essentially... How do I explain this? To make things simple, it's not completely true. Keep this in mind, but to make it simple, it works about the opposite of a magnet. Magnets are made to bring things together. They can attract, they can push apart and things like that. These anti-magnets have a sort of bending effect. that can do a whole bunch of other things. With a magnet, it's essentially a straight line pull or a straight line push. Anti-magnets have more of a bending effect, and you can do a whole bunch of other different things with these particular anti-magnets. You have to go to a particular station with a combined magnet to turn it into an anti-magnet and empower it, though. I'm just going to keep that simple and not go into heavy detail with that because that's not a full concept on that particular thing. But just keep in mind, it's not a regular magnet that pushes or repulses. It does a whole bunch of other wacky things. Magnets that stick into survivors. I didn't decide if I wanted to keep it permanently in until they go to a demagnetizer, or whether I wanted to make it to where it just sticks to them for a little bit and fall out. My original plan was to make them use demagnetizers. Now, the more magnets that you stick into a particular survivor, the heavier they're going to be affected by a magnetized wall. And you can do that either way. A survivor with 5 positive magnets jammed into them, running by 1 negative magnet on a doorway, is going to be pulled a lot heavier towards that from a lot farther distance than, or vice versa. If I set up a door and I have 5 different positive magnets in it and they have 1 negative magnet in it, they're going to be pulled a lot more than vice versa, or not vice versa, than, it being a 1-to-1 type thing. So having magnets permanently stick into survivors, which I thought about add-ons and things like that to run that through as well. I've thought a lot about that. But having the magnet stick into survivors permanently forces them to go to a demagnetizer or forces them to avoid certain loops. Because you can just magnet a particular area and the survivor just cannot run through that door if you have enough magnets down. This is a moving trap-like killer that can manipulate the way survivors move. It's the whole purpose of this. You're not meant to be like Trapper and spend the first beginning of the game setting up traps. You're meant to set up traps on the fly. If you know a survivor's running towards Kill Shack, you want to start throwing magnets as quick as you can to areas where if that killer decides to continue, or survivor decides to keep continuing using that loop, you want to make it harder for them. Now, the magnets themselves aren't very strong. You're looking at like minimum keyword there, slowdown and things like that till you stack up a set of magnets. So it's just meant as a pseudo slowdown while also chasing the particular survivor. Now you can do that by making it like Trickster, and you can have like 70 fucking things you can throw and slowly increase the gravitational pull, or you can just give it an extended cooldown and make the magnet stronger every cooldown one you throw. Either or, I don't really care. I've looked at both ways. It works both ways. Now this is where things get interesting. If you are carrying an item and the killer has a full magnet, this is one of the special abilities of the full magnet, the survivor's camera will slowly try and turn itself towards the killer. This is both beneficial to the killer and hurtful to the killer at the same time. If the killer's on the other side of a wall and you're unaware that they already have a magnet out and you have an item, your camera's going to turn to the left saying that, hey, that particular, the killer's there. I know. However, if you're looping a killer or you're trying to do, the 360s where you turn your camera or you're running from a killer and all of that, having your camera being moved, which in essence turns your survivor, and having them sway back and forth, your camera and your survivor being affected because you're holding an item, I think would be an interesting thing, especially if you get a superconductor magnet or an anti-magnet, which does a whole bunch of wacky things. So the survivor can keep their precious item and continue to run around, or they can drop that item until the coast is clear and come back and pick it up later. Items on the ground are not affected by magnetic pull, because I think it would be a pain in the ass making it to where items that are dropped could just follow the magnet killer for X amount of time and be moved. I think that's a pain in the ass, so I'm going to go ahead and list that now. Now, along with items and things like that, if you are working on a generator that a magnet is nearby, and you have an item in your hand, or if you have any magnets on you, leaving that generator is going to take a little bit of extra time. And that's where setting up traps, I mean, you can take the time to set up traps and do all of that. It gives you leniency. You can set traps on the go. You can preset at the beginning of the game if you want to. Different strategies, different things. But if you have magnets in your body and there's magnets in a particular generator and the killer comes through, keep in mind that you have to let go of the generator and then break out of the magnetic pool before you can get back up to running at full speed. So that essentially keeps survivors sort of in the particular area of the magnet. Also keep in mind that the killer itself is wearing a magnet helmet and is carrying a large amount of magnets on its particular person. So the killer itself is going to be magnetic. And it's going to have unique interactions with survivors that have a large amount of magnets and things like that on it. So instead of saying tear radius, or alongside a tear radius, there will be more like a magnetic effect radius that goes along with that. The survivor has a ridiculous amount of magnets on it, and the killer standing next to him, that survivor might as well kiss his ass goodbye. He's taking that hit. Now, when a survivor gets hit, the force of the magnets going together explodes the magnets off. Well, I don't say explodes, but pushes all magnets off of that survivor. I mean, opposites attract, yes, but if you propulse two magnets at each other and force your way in, one of the magnets are going to try to push themselves from each other. So any survivors getting hit, all magnets will fall off of them. I had originally planned go as far as to say any missed hits that come close to a particular survivor, because you're obviously he's going to be using the magnetic weapon too. Makes magnets fall off the survivor, and I could be convinced to make like one magnet fall off per missed hit or something like that, or one magnet fall off per couple of seconds that you spend near particular survivors. So there's another way for them to get off besides the demagnetizer. Demagnetizer works like a regular demagnetizer. It's very quick. You shove something in, you rub it back and forth a couple of times, and it's demagnetized. Very quick. However, you know, magnets getting inside of the particular survivor, it's going to be longer per magnet you take off. um, Again, I actually did write down that. If there's magnets on the walls and all of that, the killer receives a speed increase when running 15 degrees of the magnet, or like within a 15-degree like radius or cone of that particular magnet. It's good that I actually put in the word cone and didn't say radius because magnets do not give you the killer any type of boost through walls. So if you throw it on the outside of a wall, as soon as you're out of that particular magnet's range, unless it's a superconductor or upgraded magnet, you will not receive that huge, boost. Well, I don't say it's a huge boost. You won't exceed the same speed increase than if you aren't. Um. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. This was the thing that one of the anti-magnets or regular magnets, if you have a lot of them on them, if a survivor has a large amount of magnets on them, the hooks are magnetized, obviously. You'll have magnetized hooks all around the map. Or regular hooks that just have both charges associated with them, whatever's easier. If a survivor has a large amount of magnets to it, the hooks themselves will magnetize the survivors to the hooks. I'm not saying you're gonna run by a hook and the hook's just gonna grab you and pull you up onto that shit. But if you are downed by a hook, let's say trading for another survivor or something, you pull them off the hook, the killer immediately downs you, and you have a large amount of magnets on you while being hit underneath specifically a hook. Instead of the magnets exploding off of you, all of those magnets will pull you up onto that hook automatically. Once that happens, that hook becomes magnetized and the killer gets repelled away from that hook and cannot approach that hook. So you have automatic hooking if you're within, X amount of meters. Of course, the more magnets a survivor has on them, the more meters increase that particular hook's going to have. So if anybody trades, you'll just smack the person that's down. The hook will automatically attract that survivor up to it, and you can just immediately knock one survivor down, turn, and then go after the other survivor. Keep in mind that if you use the automatic hooks and all of that, you cannot approach that hook anymore. So this killer is not one that you want to camp with. Anytime you hook a survivor on a particular hook, the killer gets propelled away. So basement camping's not really a good strategy. Also, keep in mind that these propulsions come in waves. So it gives you the ability to still pick up a survivor that's going for an unhook, but in waves you'll get propulsed. The reason why I made it in waves because I know some dumbass is gonna sit in the back of Kill Shack or go to the very back of Kill Shack and hook a survivor in it, or Kill Shack basement and hook a survivor in it, and then stand there. And then the magnetic force is gonna hit and their ass is gonna get stuck in the back of the goddamn basement for the rest of the game. And they're gonna say, "Broke killer, I hate it." So after that happens, you have a couple of seconds to get back around, and then in waves, you'll be pushed back from the hook. In waves, boom. Couple of seconds go by, boom. It gives you enough time to go up and get a hit or a grab, but it also gives them room to be able to unhook. What else do I have wrote down here? The way I initially designed this killer was to be an alternative killer for the Huntress and or the Trickster because of the way they throw things and it's magnetic. Essentially, just picture a magnetic hatchet that if you miss still has some effect, or if you hit has an effect. Now, there are multiple different variations of add-ons. One makes it like a Huntress hatchet to where if it hits the survivor it does damage, but the magnetic effects are severely lessened. There's one that doesn't do damage when you hit a survivor. but it makes it longer for them to take it off, but the effects and all of that are magnetized more. And a whole bunch of other add-ons and shit like that. Um, I forgot about this. Another special that I've incorporated into this is everything has to do with magnets. So, if you hit them with a superconductive magnet, and there are any other magnets in the particular area, that survivor will be forced to run towards that particular magnet for X amount of seconds, which can be increased with add-ons and everything like that, with, the associated penalties for running them. So if I throw a magnet on a generator, the survivor's working on that generator, I come around the corner, they waited too long, they try to run, and I hit them with the superconductor magnet. They're going to be forced to walk, or they're going to be pulled back towards that generator for a small amount of time. It's not going to be anything huge, but they're going to be pulled back towards that generator and unable to do anything with a superconductive magnet. Granted, superconductive magnets, again, are based off the power that a killer has to build up to actually get. You're not going to get very many superconductive magnets, keep that in mind. If you're lucky, you'll get about 3 a game. And that's if you're, on it, using your magnetic powers and all of that, and constantly building up your particular power gauge. How do you build up power gauge? You can build power gauge up by the blood of your enemies. You can build it up by staying within a magnetic field. You can also build up your power gauge by not using magnets. If you don't use your magnetic powers at all, your gauge will passively fill up. So if you decide to wait and not use your particular powers and stay basically a mouse one killer, you can build your power up pretty fast, then all at once throw a magnet down on a gen or in a particular area, or set up just one goddamn huge ass trap for a survivor, hit him with the superconductive magnet, and basically just force them to stay in one place, getting basically a free down. Superconductor magnets are extremely special, however, they don't last entirely too long. Once you set the fuse on the superconductive magnet, you have anywhere from 30 to 60 seconds, of course, add-ons, to use said magnet. So it's not just something that you have forever. Um, Survivor side, there is a taunt perk that Survivor has. They taunt the killer. It immediately gives the killer Bloodlust 1, but prevents the killer from breaking pallets. Or something along the lines of that. I don't actually remember because I just jotted down notes. The perk, the notes that I have for Survivor, because that's the last thing that I would ever do. The notes for this literally says Survey, perk, taunt killer, bloodless 1, no pallet break. So I don't know what I was thinking at that particular time, so I assume that it has something to do with you taunting the killer, getting into Bloodlust 1, and then preventing the killer from breaking a pallet for X amount of time. That's a reasonable time. If I had something better in 9, I guess I apologize to myself. I don't know. Oh, there's a side note. Survivor 30-second expose and can only be targeted at that time. Oh, okay. I didn't read the rest of it. So, you taunt the killer, immediately giving them Bloodlust 1 and preventing them from breaking pallets for X amount of time. However, the survivor receives a 30-second expose status effect and is the only person that can be targeted at that time. So if you do run into an instance to where people are trying to trade or anything like that, or it's end game or something like that, you can taunt the killer, and then the rest of your other survivor buddies can run off into the sunset while you deal with the exposed status effect and try to escape. Obviously, these are notes. That's actually going to have to be balanced into an actual working perk and all of that, but those are scribbles. So, taunting killer, giving them Bloodlust 1, exposing the survivor for 30 seconds, but while getting exposed, the killer can only damage or target that particular survivor. Obviously, that's going to have to be anti-cheese because all the rest of the survivors are just going to body block the killer while the other person who's exposed runs off into the sunset. But I mean, with some anti-cheese and changing up the formula a little bit and actually formulating that and cutting off the chaff and all of that, that can be made into a pretty interesting perk. And I'm already at 3.5 hours. So as much as I would like to go over the rest of this concept I made, I'm actually well over time. And I'm starting to get hungry. But if anybody wants to adapt that concept, change it up, use something similar to it, or etc., it is fair game. It is out there for you to use. Do whatever you need to do, or you can let it die. I generally do not care at this point. But that's about it. Yeah, I have really nothing else to go over. I might play some forts later on, maybe some Rocket League like usual or something. I'm not entirely sure, but that's not really relevant to what we're doing now. So, thank you. Anybody that's stopping by, has stopped by, will stop by, or in the future stops by. Hello, future me. You're probably still an asshole, but hello. As always, supplement your lifestyle and avoid people named Gordon with crowbars. Peace.